listen to often. I'm not going to play it while I talk, but I just want to share. It's from Poor Clare Sisters. It's called My Peace I Give You, and they have 30-minute, 20-minute, 10-minute, and it allows me when I'm just if things just kind of need to come back into a rhythm, it's a way in which to come back into a rhythm. I find it to be very peaceful. Now, I have things to share with you that I'm going to put up on a website, any takeaways, and if there's anything that you want to see up there, you can write to me and I'll put that up too. My intention is to make a lot of this question and answer. So to get into the question and answer part though, I'm just going to sort of close it out from what we did yesterday. So yesterday we sort of laid the ground of entering in, worshiping the Lord through spirit and truth, and we began with the woman at the well. And in this scene of confrontation, Jesus is saying, I'm here to show you a different way to worship your God. The one in which you worship is not what you think. And he says, there's going to be now a time where you're going to worship the God in the heart. And that is the place in which you're going to enter. And it's going to be done in spirit and truth. And we spoke about what it means to know Jesus, the distinction. I just remembered. Lynn said, I have half of this. I'm going to talk. Can you hear me now? Okay. The distinction between knowing about truth and knowing the truth. It's not the same thing. You can read the Word of God and you can read about God. It's not the same thing as knowing God. And the way in which the distinction here you have to recognize, it's sort of in the language of the Old Testament. What did it mean when a man knew a woman? It mean they came together in love. It came together in matrimony. That's the way in which we're meant to come together. That's why Jesus as the husband is just this metaphor, and us, the church, is the bride of Christ, to come and be one. It's talking about a metaphysical union, an ethereal union. Obviously, it's not talking about the earthly union. So when we think on things, we have to think on the earthly plane, but then we also have to be able to go into the heavenly plane, or the ethereal plane, or the spiritual plane. And the way in which you understand something that's outside of this time-space reality, that's outside of this three-dimensional reality that we know, you have to use a function inside of you that can operate in that other domain. The mind is bound to time-space. The mind cannot go into the spiritual because our brain is hardwired in duality. Our brain is hardwired in zeros and ones. It is used to make sense of your life, to categorize information, and to put it in filing cabinets where it is going to stay until you need to pull it out. When you go into the spiritual, it is going to be through the function of the heart. And I want to begin with the heart, but just to recap this big concept, because if you can get your mind to circle around this rhythm that's constantly taking place in life, it's going to help you when you walk through and you know, or you ask yourselves the right questions. Because if you ask yourselves the right questions, you're going to get the right answers. Ask, right? Knock. But if you knock on the wrong door, you can't get the right door if you're knocking on the wrong door. You can't have what you want to come out of the wrong door. So it's very important that you ask the right questions. So this is a picture of love. This is a picture of what's going on in every one of our relationships. Love, what it means to love is beyond. And I mean, really, when you hear music, that is the rhythm. There's a rhythm going on whether you hear the music or not. So love is something beyond just the emotion of affection and adoration, although adoration is a tremendous vehicle of love. It is happening all of the time in you and every part of you, where, think of the small parts that make up your body are constantly bumping into other parts. And in this constant bumping into other parts, they are switching, they're swapping, they're transferring themselves into the other and coming back. So it's a constant swap back, swap back, swap back. They're in this engagement. How they interact is they take whatever that part is and they touch that other part, become it, and then come back. Freaky Friday was the example, the movie example I gave to try to understand this at a more macro level of what we are doing. Love sees its divinity as you become whoever it is you're beholding. When you become one with whoever you're beholding, and you become one with the vantage point of God, you have now successfully engaged in this love function. So it's very easy to love certain people. And some people, it's not easy to love. Why? Because the function of love is this swap, for you to become the other. And so the reason why you have trouble in those circumstances is because there's a resistance in you that when you go to do the swap, you're hitting something that is not surrendered to the river, to the one spirit that connects us all. And so as you go through your relationships, those people that you butt heads with, it's because love is the action of these particles that make us up, that come from God, and their nature is to interface with the other particles and become one with them. And here you are, and for some reason there's a block, there's a resistance from you becoming love with this particular person. If you block that transference, this is where it's the roots of disease. The roots of disease begin from love being blocked, because who you are is love. Why are you love? Because God is love. God created you, and you are self-similar with Him, and that goes to this idea of the fractals that I was talking about. Fractals being patterns in nature that are existing, that are repetition, repetition, repetition of these patterns, and it turns out that our entire body has resemblance to even patterns in nature, because there is this imprint on all of us, how even at the micro level, you can blow it up and see it at the macro level. And that's when we were talking about how the lungs, you can see self-similarity between lungs and trees and branches and how they branch out. You can see self-similarity between the arteries in the veins in your body and trees and how they sprout. There's this self-similarity happening all of the time. You can see the similarity between the brain cells and how they make connections with other brain cells and what galaxies look at from a macro level. This self-similarity is going on all the time, and sometimes it's easier to look at something on the micro level and understand it at the macro, and sometimes it's easier to look at the macro level and so then to understand something at the micro. It depends on the way you want to look at it. If you want to understand the United States as a society, as one whole organism, start looking at your own town. And then you'll start to see how that all comes together and forms the whole. That's why being the change is the only thing you ever could do, because by you being the change, you're part of it, there will then be a self-similarity that comes out of you. You cannot change something if you yourself are not changed, because all you will be is more of the same. What's that that saying that says, if you keep doing the same things and expect that, oh right, insanity, because it defies logic. And there is a beautiful logic to this. Of course, we don't want to get lost in logic. And then we spoke about the miracle of paradox. We spoke about the miracle of paradox in the Bible, and that there are these paradoxes everywhere. And the reason why there's going to be paradoxes is because language itself is caught up in a dimension lower than God. And by that use of language, and I'll give you an example of these paradoxes. So, let's see. I think I have it. By giving, you receive. That's a paradox. By releasing, you get. By forgiving, you're forgiven. By doing nothing, all is done. By surrendering, all is conquered. By dying, you are reborn. These are all paradoxes. And when you embrace the paradoxes, there's something that comes out of it that you can only engage in the heart. You can only understand a paradox in the heart. So we came to see, this was just sort of highlighting, if you want to see why your life is the way it is, start looking at the repeated patterns. And we saw, though, that there was also a paradox of what keeps you blind from recognizing your own role in your life. And that is highlighted in 1 John, in the letters that John wrote, where it says, if you're in darkness, you're blind. And so your sin keeps you in darkness, but if you're in darkness, you're blind to the fact that it's your sin that puts you there. You don't even see your sin. And I think I have. That's what this is sort of like, imagine whatever part of you that is in dysfunction. It's like being in a dark tunnel. And then we spoke about, well, what did Jesus do metaphysically when he went on the cross? Jesus willingly allowed himself to be separate from God, which is what death is. The resurrection is to show that death is not the end of the body. But what Jesus did on the cross was he willingly knew who he is, what life is, and he allowed himself to be separate from God, and that began in the garden the night before. That began when the angels, he had to call them to help him because he thought he would die prematurely. Being separated from God is death. So a lot of us, in certain areas of our life, are in some way, you could say, the walking dead. That is the function of death. This body is just a vessel. It came from the earth, it's going to be returned to the earth. Your soul is not from the earth. Your soul is from a higher domain. Your soul is from the domain of love because that's who God is. So Jesus came, and when he allowed himself to walk into the separation, he brought himself there, which is the totality of everything. And when he brought the way, the life, the truth, the love into that domain of separation, now, for everyone else in separation, we had access to it. And so it's like being in a dark tunnel, but because he walked into separation, he transmuted love into that separation. You have to think of this in a metaphysical way. This is beyond physics. So it's to understand that he brought love from the domain of love into the domain of separation, where it never was before. Because love is just in the domain of love. And he did that willingly. There's no greater love than to lay your life down for someone else. So when he walked into that, he laid down his life, he allowed himself to be separated from God for a moment, brought love into the separation, and then what happens? Because we're one spirit, we're different parts of a body, where we have uniqueness in the way in which we love, which defines sort of the intentions of our soul. But we are all connected from one spirit. And so when he did that, when we surrendered to that one spirit, we were able to access what he put in there. And because we're all connected by that one spirit, we can now grab onto the love, and it will be a light to walk us out of the tunnel. This is the remedy to the problem, because we all have one fundamental problem that hits us all, and it'll hit us all while there's partial truths, right? When the total has not yet come, so now we live in the partial truths. There will be a moment where prophesy will cease and tongues will cease and all that. When the total is made known, the one problem we face is the inability to discern truth from falsehood. This is the question. What do I do? What do I do? Why is this happening to me? Is that person right or is that person right? Should I listen to that article or should I listen to that article? Should I buy that food or do I buy that food? Are the nightshades good for me or are they bad for me? Or is it the lectins or is it the pectins or is it the fat? Is it the saturated fat? Is it the, what is it? Is it seed oils? What is it? We struggle with determining what's true and what's not. And here's the kicker. What is true for you may not be true for everybody else. And this is the struggle, is that we come to see some experience for ourselves and we expect that to be the same for everybody, and it's not. Truth is the dialogue of love. And some of us, we have a unique walk with love, and so that dialogue is going to be different for some people. For some people, you're going to be able to eat things that other people cannot. But when we talk about truth as God's word, there's a difference between truth is really not something, we always want to, this is a limitation of mathematics, because mathematics likes to build itself on logic. But really what you need to build yourself on is the rock, which is Jesus as the foundation. And truth is the love language. So truth is the way in which we engage with the rock. But Jesus is the rock. He's the way, he's the life, he is the truth, but he is that. It's multidimensional and it's beyond dimension at the same time. So from that, how do you know you're on the rock? It's by the love you feel. If you feel the overwhelming love, know that you're on the rock. And I'm talking about the love that has the symbiotic relationship where one becomes the other and you recognize yourself as one. And what is going to be the sure way to get off of that rock? It's going to be through judgment. It is going to be when you try to use your mind to say that's right and that's wrong in a context that you shouldn't be in the first place. There are certain, and this is a paradox, because if you live a life of sin, that's wrong. But if you judge others, if you go out of your lane and start making lots of judgments on others and trying to make sense of things that you don't have all the details to, that's also wrong. So we're supposed to judge, but if we judge, we will be judged by that same measure. It's a paradox. That's where you need the heart. You can't rely on the mind. It's not going to be a simple rule of like, okay, if you just do this, the mind is not going to save you. That's why you have to use your heart. You have to use your heart as a telltale sign. You cannot use scripture that's written, that's been translated, if you are not knowing the scripture through the heart. Then you're just using words. It must be known through the heart for the meaning to be released. It's something that has to take you out of the domain of time and space. That is how you engage God as a spirit. Because God is a spirit, it's above this domain. And you need to worship him in the spirit. And you know how to do that if you use a tool, a piece of equipment that can go into that realm. And the mind cannot, but the heart can. That must be with you whenever you think, whenever you process or discern, or how you treat other people. It must have the heart very active in it, because it's the heart that's going to give you the flag that's saying, okay, you're losing who you are right now because you were stepping away from love that you are. Now, trying to find a picture of one body is difficult. I chose this sort of imagining Jesus as that one body and all of the expressions that come out of it. And imagine you, if we could take a picture of your soul, imagine it coming out in colors. But imagine those colors fluctuating depending on your intention and purpose at that time. Us surrendered in Jesus as one, you can see the colors. So some of us are going to be operating, and it's fluid, it's always in motion, but it's together as one organism. This is where you're going to see your life have a rhythm of synchronicity, and where no longer are you going to have to deal with much confusion, because you even lose the fear of confusion. The fear of confusion has to leave you. And there's a process to that. When we surrender to that one spirit, it unites us into one body. You can actually surrender in this moment right now. If you said to yourself, I'm just going to sit for here, and in this moment I'm sitting in this chair, and remember, where's the temple of the Lord? The temple of the Lord is not going to be up here. It's going to be here. Up here, think of it as the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the knowledge of zeros and ones. Tree of good and evil, like here. Both left hemisphere of the brain, right hemisphere of the brain. Here in the one, it's in union. And so now, sitting at the chair right now, you can just bring your focus to the union inside of your heart, inside of the throne room. And you can surrender your attention and intention just to that place. And just for a moment, I want you to close your eyes. So close your eyes. Some of us might be uncomfortable to close your eyes, but close your eyes. This is what stillness feels like. Be still and know that He is the Lord. Amen. Be still. 1 Corinthians 12:12, keep your eyes closed and feel it in that center point of your heart. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. We have to surrender to the Lord's will to come to know what true desire is. Psalms 37:4, take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. We have to pray for God's strength to walk the path. Philippians 2:13, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill His good purpose. We have to be purified by hope that God can turn any situation around. Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. And 1 John 3:3, and everyone who has this hope in Jesus purifies himself just as Jesus is pure. I want you to sit and feel that constant presence inside of you that is always there. It is your 0 point. It is the state of neutrality and balance. It is the full attention that He has on you as you go through everything else. He never leaves you. He is always in that place. And in that place is where you'll start to feel true desire. Because desire is not really for cherry pie. Desire is not really for a vacation. True desire is desire that comes out of the covenant that you made with God in the first place before you entered in as His life, when He sanctified you in the womb, as Jeremiah writes. That is where your true desires are. Now you can open your eyes. And I want you to remember that feeling, because it's that feeling that you have to open up to in the morning when you open up your eyes. And I'm going to talk to you about a routine to do. But that is the place you have to start your day. You have to feel that oneness, so that when you walk through this the fallen world, the rat race, the concrete jungle, the frenzy, you don't get caught up by the frequency, basically the predominant signature of that. That you walk with a steadiness in Jesus, the way Jesus is walking now. Jesus can walk with you every single place you go. So, God is love. And Jesus has abided in me and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine. Think about things in which you have done that did not begin from a peace. It did not begin with a real full understanding of knowing Him. and compare the fruit of that with other things you did that were founded on the rock. You can sort of see the intention of something by looking at the fruit. Now, some fruit is out of your control. Can't really control that, but if it's in your experience and it requires your attention, it's usually for a reason. And you can see, you can tell by the way a fruit tastes, if it tastes like love or not. It's pretty clear. You can tell when a word comes out of your mouth, if that's going to be a sweet fruit or it's going to be bitter. And you can start to be very aware of the things that you say, and you can ask yourself, did I know I was loved at the moment I said it? Is what I said, does that match with me as love? Because God is love and I'm a creation of His, so that must mean I'm love. Did what I say come out of love? That doesn't mean you have to say, that doesn't mean you give in. Like if you have a child and they just want a certain thing and you just, that's actually fear of your worth. But that's you not knowing your worth. If you're a parent and your child is doing something that's hurtful to you, disrespecting someone else, you telling that child, let me tell you the way about life and this is how it's going to go, is not lack of love. That is love. Because that child is being robbed of that own experience of knowing the blessing of love and also the consequence of disrespect. That's your role, is to know your worth and to be able to communicate that. And it might mean a stern word, but if you say it out of love, it's love. When you lose control as a parent and you start yelling, that is losing control. I know what that looks like. I know what it looks like. And you know where I learned it? From my own parents. Right? There's a lot of things that we're doing. Imagine a woman looking in the mirror that's looking at a woman in a mirror that's looking at a woman in a mirror. It's meant to say there's a whole chain of patterns that we do, and a lot of it is learned from what we saw as a child. You have to allow the chain to be broken. And so I say to myself, if I drop something on the floor, my mom's, so upset that it's on the floor, I had to see that in myself and say, no, because what gets me is that I imagine my little kid talking like that to their little kid. You have to recognize the difference of, I just lost it. Or no, this is a stern, I'm doing this and they need to see you've crossed the line. I have completely emptied my children's room into a plastic bag if they didn't listen. And I meant everything I did. And I would do it again. My boiling point is never my real boiling point. Sometimes you just got to show, if it's your real boiling point, that means you've lost control. And you can't let people walk over you. That's a lack of self-respect. You are so worthy. You are so worthy and loved and cherished, and God is your defender. And He's not going to be happy with anyone that comes against you in that way. And so with children, it's a tricky thing. It's not easy. And there's going to be a lot of mistakes, and you have to not, remember, what will take you off the rock fastest is judgment. Self-judgment is the downfall. This is where the mind became the king. Is because in that judgment, in the cycles of judgment, we get caught in the judgment. That has to go. You have to stop judging yourself. You have to let it go. And you have to start just sitting and saying, every single moment you have a way to reset your whole life. All it takes is one moment. All it takes is one moment of changing your perspective and allowing your whole paradigm to be changed by love. And it will only be love that will change it. It will not be the logic. So, love is actually the only thing that remains. And there's a beautiful law of subtraction I'd like to share. So, love, here we see, this is Paul's word, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, never fails. But where there's prophecies, they will fail. Where there's tongues, they will cease. Where there's knowledge, it will vanish away. All knowledge will vanish away. And now abide faith, hope, and love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. I want to talk to you about the law of subtraction. So imagine you have a life, and in your life, which is complex, all of the makeup of your life, imagine it as a tree, and imagine everything here are all of your experiences, and these are going to be your heart experiences. And now imagine from those experiences, love came as well, because love is always part of you. And it is from this, within those experiences, from people, relationships that you had, conversations you had, dinners, heart-to-hearts and such, having children, loving them, having relationships and sharing in the love. That's what's by the red. And so our life is a mixed bag of love dynamics and then complexities, hardships, resistance, disappointments, frustrations, confusion, all of this. Everything is going to vanish away. Everything. Except the love. And this is what's going to remain. All of these pieces, all of the confusion and the heartache and the betrayals and the losses. You know, the last thing to be conquered, Paul writes, is death. Everything goes away. And all that remains is the love. This is the law of subtraction. And you don't have to die from this life to apply it. You can apply it right now. Because we know death is actually not the God. Your soul never dies. It doesn't die. You can be in torment. That's when we see demons or lost souls. They're on forever. Souls, infinity particles do not end. They're infinity particles. So it does not die. So do not think that you're going to just live this life, and at the moment this dies, this is the end. It's a mystery. We do not know what happens next. You can guess, and we all might be different, and some of you might say, oh, you can't think that, but I'll tell you it's a mystery. No one can say anything about what happens after everyone dies. I'm trying to tell you that death is not the death of the body, it's separation from God. That is death. And right now, you could be reborn and bring heaven onto the earth as a bridge if you embrace God's will and you allow that to die, which is impermanent. And it is all the black that you could right now start subtracting from your life. There is a blessing where it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom, right? What does that mean, poor in spirit? If you look at the Aramaic word, so they have it translated from the Greek, and if you look at the Greek was then translated from the Aramaic, because Jesus was speaking most likely in Aramaic. If you look at that Aramaic translation, that poor in spirit, it refers to simplicity. Those that are simple in the heart, that are simple in the mind. Those that embrace the law of simplicity. Some things are so confusing, and they just let it go. And they just take it, they look at the complex issues of the world, and if it takes them out of the simplicity of love, they just let it go. Jesus tells us to focus on the day at hand. Tomorrow will worry for itself. And for all of us worried about all the things that we need, aren't the lilies clothed? Aren't the birds fed? They don't know to stress. They already know. In a certain sense, the animals are already one. There's no confusion in the animal of how to be part of God's universe. But because we have this mind and this intellect, we have this confusion. This mind is a wonderful tool if you know how to use it. The same way your telephone is a wonderful tool. Your cell phone can have you go into an airplane and be lost in items. You find a place there. Your phone can help, is so helpful in so many ways. But at the same time, it is the downfall in so many ways. is that phone. So that's a metaphor for the mind. A simple life on truth helps you get through the weeds. It helps you weed your garden. And if you start to examine the garden of your heart and pull out the weeds, but okay, how do you know what are weeds? This is where your morning must start with coming and asking these questions. So you sit, and we're supposed to meditate on God. We're supposed to be one with Him. So sit and don't talk for a moment. Just sit. If you sit in the garden of your heart, that is a prayer unto itself. And you say, Lord, I am sitting here. It is my heart to surrender to you. It is my heart to know your heart and to know your will. And now shine your light upon me that I may see what I am hiding from. What am I hiding from and do not want to see? Show me. Some of you, it might be, I'm hiding from hurt from the way my father treated me. I'm hiding from dysfunction in my sibling relationships. I'm hiding from betrayal with past relationships. I'm hiding from low self-esteem. I'm hiding from seeing and falsely believing that I am something other than a worthy child of God. If you see yourself as unworthy, you cannot see. And you'll know that how much you feel worthiness by how much peace you feel. Are you worthy enough to have a house that you have enough to pay the bills? Are you worthy enough to have a body that is here to help and support you to carry out the will of God? Are you worthy enough to have your health and your wealth to sow into the kingdom? Are you worthy enough to have someone be in a relationship with you and honor you and respect you? Are you worthy enough to have children that honor and respect you? Do you see yourself as worthy? Now, it might not be that you have those people treating you that way, but it must start with you believing you're worthy to have it. How people react to you, that's going to be decisions that they have to kind of define. But you cannot lose your sense of worthiness that you know the way of love. What did Jesus say? If someone asks you for a cloak, give him your extra. If someone says, go with me a mile, go with him too. You can be asked by an employer to do something. If it's not something that's immoral, you could just say, okay, knowing you're worthy, and do that extra. If you're asked to get a glass of water, even though you're so tired, or if you're asked to give someone the last bite of your dessert, see how it feels just to say, okay. See how it feels to let go of thinking your flesh is starving for something, whether your flesh is exhausted, or it's hungry, or it's feeling run down. There's a blessing that comes just by saying yes. If you allow yourself to see what it feels like to say yes, even though logically you say to yourself, you just sat down and been working all day, you're gonna ask me to go get you a fork. Even if it doesn't seem like, just see what happens if you just say yes. But never lose your sense of worth as you do it. Because if that's an issue, that's a greater problem that is happening at the stem. You have to know your worth in His eyes. I think to myself, and this happens all the time for me, my mother's not here. All of the time. Well, this or that, and I realize I could just say yes. She doesn't have to understand. She does not have to understand, and she doesn't understand. And that's the other helpful thing, too, to know that everybody is sort of doing the best they can. You have to give people that grace, and it'll help you. And if you have something you can give, and especially, isn't it funny that we're unwilling to give to the people that are closest to us? Aren't you unwilling to share that cake with your wife? No. The other way around? No. Don't we treat our spouse the worst? Right? And we say, oh, and it's different things. There's a whole nuances there that are taking place, and sometimes it's a bunch of fun. I look at my husband getting water on the toilet seat from the shower. I say, he's talking to me. Now he knows I'm going to think about him. And so what do? I just don't change the toilet paper, because then I know when he sees that, he knows I'm talking to him. He's going to think of me when he sees that. And this is the game you play. You can turn anything that is a disturbance in your life into laughter. And that's a gift. We're not really here to get older, work 9 to 5, make all this money, make all these children, and all this stuff for the stuff. We're actually sort of in the school of life. This really is a school of life. And we're all in pre-kindergarten. We are. Think about it. The next time someone asks you to do something that you really don't have to do, and maybe it's not justified for you to do it, break the chain. Break the cycle just by saying yes. Just by saying yes. But knowing you're worthy to start with. So, here, this was Moses. He couldn't come up and see the Lord because he didn't feel, he was intimidated. He didn't feel worthy. And so he had to take off his shoes to touch the holy ground again. That's what we're going to have to do. We have to allow Jesus' resurrection, his transformation power to really transform any amount of darkness that's still in you. Because you cannot fully surrender to the Spirit of God with darkness. It cannot happen. And so you have to start redefining what you say about yourself. It matters what you say in the mirror. You have to say, I am yours, and you are mine. And I give this day to you. I focus my whole mind on you. I surrender it to you. And then you walk so that when you look at the light, it won't blind you. And we know in Ephesians it says anything that the light touches, it makes manifest. And that's the beauty of it. So if there's darkness in you and you willingly allow the light to touch it, it will make manifest anything that you really need to focus on. This I was just sort of talking about the mind. We have to let that go. And here I just want us to talk about the heart for just a moment. This fascinating heart that's beating in our chest right now is so fascinating on the physical level, you could only imagine how fascinating it is on the metaphysical level. So the heart is responsible for pumping blood to your entire circulatory system. So that's organs, tissues, cells receive nutrients and oxygen, and waste such as carbon dioxide is eliminated. Research is proving that the heart may be as intricate as the brain. It is referred to as the little brain, and it has an electrical component about 60 times greater than the brain, and an electromagnetic energy field that is 5,000 times greater than the brain. The heart's energy is said to reach about 3 feet out of the physical body. When you walk and you're fully surrendered to the throne room, to the heart, your signature hits people before you even come in their vicinity. 3 feet away from you. That's why you can tell when someone walks in the room. You can feel that person in a certain sense. You can see if something's terribly wrong. But you ever notice there's just someone you just enjoy being around? That you just feel their love. There's some free flowing with it, like electrons. They just give it off, give it off, give it off. Because it's actually physically taking place. And so the concept of heart-brain coherence suggests that when heart and brain are in sync, it can lead to improved cognitive functioning and emotional well-being. So this is what you want to think of. A massive ship is controlled by a very tiny amount of wood called the rudder. That massive ship is just directed by the heart, by the rudder. We are a massive ship. If we allow the heart to be the rudder, here we are. We don't have to use the oars of our left and right brain. The oars of the left and right brain are trying to go against the current. The heart knows how to go and bend with the current and take you where you need to go. This is why it's so important that even in our biology, it's showing us that the heart is in charge. There are more connections stemming from the heart to the brain than the other way around. This is amazing. This is revolutionary because science up to this point thought that the brain was the main king of the body, and it's not. It's the heart. And so the root emotion that shuts down the heart, judgment. It is the root emotion that cuts you off. And the reason is because we are all one. And again, it is a paradox because there are going to be things that are done that are wrong. And we have to make decisions about it. But you have to make decisions about it by staying in your lane. This is very important, especially if you're one that's really trying to understand why things happen the way that they do. It's very important not to lose yourself in that, because you will lose perspective. You'll lose. See, God is very patient. I'm going to give you a little example of this. We know that slavery was very wrong. Slavery still happens today across the world. There are people that are sold into slavery. There's trafficking that's happening. There's slavery happening now today. It's nothing new. If you look at an evolutionary standpoint of animals, if we look at civilizations that were more animalistic, what did they do when they conquered an enemy clan? They killed him. That was what do animals do? When a new lion's going to get to take over the pride, what do? They kill all the babies that came from the old one. They kill them. Even mother lions will kill her own cub if they seem threatening to the other ones. The mother cub will kill her own cub. Slavery, I'm talking back at this part of us kind of, just imagine what humans were like many years ago. Was in a weird way, a way not to kill everybody. So if you compare where it was in a standpoint of time, slavery is wrong. But if you compare what's better, killing off everybody or making a way for slaves, because the Jews were slaves. The Jews were the slaves in Egypt, and they outnumbered the Egyptians. And then they found their redemption, right? But by an old mechanism, if they were an enemy, they would have just been killed. I'm trying to say that when you look at something along a linear timeline, something that is still very wrong is actually a step up from something that's worse. And so, if you're looking at someone else's life, you could say, oh, that's so wrong what they're doing. But truly, you do not know where they came from. You don't know how much more in darkness they were to even get to that point. And God can see that. That's what makes this country so entirely special and why the United States is a special country. It's not that the people have more worth. Everyone is worthy the same in front of God's eyes. But because we have in our founding documents that we are children of a divine creator and we have inalienable rights, that's what makes us so special, because that is actually honored in our founding documents. And so I'm just saying to you is be very careful with judgment. Be very careful if you want to start identifying with your race, with your financial status, with your gender in places where you shouldn't. Of course, identify, I love being a woman. I love being a mother. But I have to know who I am in Christ. That my worth is the same as any other person walking in here. And if you start believing, oh, I carry the injustice of, I didn't have a parent, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, I didn't have this because, you know, and I said this yesterday, you know what the Pharisees used to pray? The Pharisees used to pray, thank God I wasn't a slave, thank God I wasn't born a Gentile, and thank God I wasn't born a woman. They missed the point. They missed the point. Don't ever find yourself in a prayer like that. You have to know your worth, and you have to be careful that you don't judge things that you don't understand. And if it's not relevant to your life and you're making a decision, be simple. Blessed are those who are simple. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those that take these it's guiding ways to go through life and to not burden yourself with things that God didn't intend you to be burdened with. Now, the law of cause and effect is you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow, and if you can look at this in a big picture, you can sort of see how it's going to happen in a small picture. I'm going to repeat some things that I said yesterday, all right? And I'm going to use the earth as an example. Right now, there has the 10 leading causes of death. I'm going to use 2019 statistics because in 2020 they used COVID as that 10th cause. We know that COVID is redefined as the infection, the flu and all that jazz. Everyone aware of how they skew statistics when it comes to flu rates and pneumonia rates, and they call this the flu when it's actually not really, well, they did it with COVID. But I'm just going to tell you the 10 leading causes of death as of 2019. So as of 2019, number 1 is heart disease. So you have 659,000 people dying of heart disease. Number 2 is cancer, about 600,000. Number 3 is unintentional injuries and accidents, 173,000. That includes accidents in the hospital, doctor accidents, misdiagnosis, leaving a screw in a body, things like that. Number 4 is chronic lower respiratory diseases. That's 156,000. Number 5 is stroke, 6 at 150,000. 6 is Alzheimer's at 121,000. 7 is diabetes at 87,000. 8 is kidney disease at 51,000. 9 is influenza and pneumonia, which now they're conflating this as COVID-19, etc. 49,000. And 10 is suicide at 47,000. And out of these, I want to say that there are things in which there is a miracle in life that could be your leverage to not make you succumb to any of them. So I'm going to categorize it for a second. Heart disease. Oh, okay. This is the roots of disease. First, there's a soul root to disease, meaning in the soul. And then it has physical attractor fields, in a sense. So let's say you are not really sure what God's will in your life is. And so you hit the ground running and you do a bunch of things, but you sort of feel out of sync, but you don't want to stop because if you kind of get calm, your mind races and so you can't be still. So you keep occupying your time with all of these other things, and you need to feel busy all of the time because at the end of the day, your greatest fear is that you did what God didn't want you to do, and you don't want to be still enough to even hear it. In fact, it feels uncomfortable. If you're a person that always needs the radio on, talking to you, podcasts, television shows, you can't even eat a meal without reading, you can't even go to the bathroom without reading, you always have to keep this mind occupied, it's very easy to fall into the flesh. And it's very easy to substitute that feeling of disconnection with food and alcohol and any other type of substance. So then you eat because you're bored. And you eat things that are not in line with what would actually give you nutrition in your cells. You're just bored. What do children do when they're bored? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Right? Anyone have grandchildren? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. No, you're just bored. You're just bored. If you fed them all of what they need, they're really just bored. They want something to give them a rise. And when you eat, you have that dopamine release. So you're getting so caught up in the dopamine release. And so when you don't know how to feel it, then that's what brings us to the television. Why do we watch those movies and those sitcoms? Because we're bored. We're not really connecting to what we were supposed to do in life. So we look for something to just pacify us. And that's why Jesus, when he comes to the woman at the well, he goes, you're starving in your soul. You have slowly been starving yourself. And so as your soul starts to starve, and you could be doing the most wonderful things. You could be doing things for the most wonderful causes. It's not about that. It's always going to come down to, are you at peace with God? That's where it is. And are you at peace in your body? in 1 John, it also says that you cannot be righteous without God. So, okay, God is a light, which we see in 1 John. So you have to sit in the light before you have fellowship in the church. That's like 1 John 2 or such. So that means for me to really be doing the work in the church, I have to first sit with the light. It has to then uncover my darkness. I have to let go of my sin, allow it to be transformed. And then I can go out, and then the fruits of my labor will be exhibited by my righteousness. So in other words, any righteousness that you might think I have, it's because of the work of the light that's in me. If someone tries to do the right thing without first coming into relationship and peace with God, you will fail. Because it doesn't come from you trying to cut things like this. It has to be in the heart first. And then you have the strength to put the Twinkie down. Then you have the strength to say no to artificial coloring and to artificial sugar and to things that they made to actually kill you on purpose. They made these things to kill you on purpose. This is population control. This is what's happening in our food system. This is what's happening in the vaccine industry. This is what's happening as they release viral particles into the air. It's population control. It's part of nature's natural cycles of population control. They don't know that they're operating on it truly as a natural cycle, but it's a death cycle. And you have to say to yourself, where are you? Are you in that cycle, or do you want to be out of it? But you can't be out of it if you keep operating within it, trying to fix the problem by the very mechanism that's making the problem in the first place, which is the structure of the mind. Your mind is structure, and structure only makes more structure. That's where your ego comes from. When you say you're something that you're not, when you think you're this false identity, that's your ego coming into play. And your ego is afraid of not being used. So actually, your mind doesn't want to be turned irrelevant. It doesn't want to be turned off. And so what you're afraid of losing in the death process is the mind itself, the ego. And that is actually the only thing that can die. So it makes you afraid of death because it's making you fear its own demise when it's actually the very thing that's going to set you free. That's how you have to live life right now. You have to live walking in the freedom. And the believers are so tormented, truly. Because I'm going to tell you, the souls that are not at rest, the lost souls, they're always going to knock. They're going to say, can I live in here? Is there any inadequacy that you believe in yourself? Can I live in that part of your brain? Can I live in your kidneys? Can I live in your gut? Or do you have an issue with self-control and discipline? Okay, I'm going to live right there in the gut. They're knocking and they're testing and they're saying, do you really believe that you're a child of God and you're worthy of the light and love and righteousness that I give and pour to you freely? Do you really believe in that? Do you really believe that everything you ever need, all you have to do is ask? Do you really believe it? And you're going to test. And until that moment comes, you will be living the Job experience. Your life will be Job's experience until you let go of the mind totally. I want to take questions. And just to direct it, I have so much that I could say. I mean, from the products you could have in your house, to the things that you put in your body, to the waves, the electromagnetic frequencies that you have while you sleep. There's just so many layers. And I wanted to sort of be directed by what you need to hear. And there's just a kind of a lasting concept I want you to just see that's happening in all of life. And it's a sine curve. Did anyone ever hear of a sine curve or a cosine curve or a curve like that in math? 10th grade? Right? All right? This is a sine curve. So they keep going. They keep going with this. There's a rise back to the stillness and then a fall and back up. I'm going to give this as an example to help you see a natural rhythm that's taking place in life. When you breathe in, your lungs should expand. When you breathe out, They should collapse, right, into a center point. There's actually a rhythm happening. This is why you don't have accidents every day. This is why you don't trip. There's moments where your life, you can look back, do a life review, maybe starting new job opportunities, new ventures, new relationships, and everything was in a moment of expansion. Sort of like when Abraham and Lot decided they needed to part ways because there was too much going on, and they could coexist if they got more space. And so they got more space, and in expansion they could coexist. Both of their families could exist like that. But then there's a moment, though, that there's going to be a collapse. So imagine, living with your mother or someone, let's say, and you could live very happily if they live 5 minutes away from you. But if they moved in, it'd be too much, right? So when there's the moment of expansion, you can tolerate diversity. But when there's that moment of collapse, anything that is not surrendered to the river, anything that's not surrendered fully to love, you will clash with, and it will crack, and it will crash. This is when you find yourself with a fender bender. This is when you find yourself with an accident, with a health diagnosis. It didn't just come all of a sudden. It seems like it did, but it was leading up to this point. There is moments in our life that is part of a cycle of expansion, and then there's moments where it's a cycle of compression. Even a woman's body, when she gives birth, it's going through expansion and compression to get that baby out. What is painful is not so much the compression, but the contraction. That's what hurts when a woman is giving birth, is the contraction. Contraction is a reaction to the compression. When the body starts compressing, there's a way to give birth and to have very little pain. I've never experienced it myself. Okay? But there is a way, and there are people that do it, who are fully at peace in the river. They usually live very simple lives, and they usually don't get so complicated, and they usually don't know a lot. This is sort of the downfall. The more that I know, the more I have to subtract. You have to subtract what you don't need. And so you have to consider in your life that when those moments of compression come, it's actually a way for birth to come out of it. Because when things are not really in line with God's will, and that season of compression comes, it's going to make it very obvious what's not working. And it's an opportunity for you to see it and to surrender to God and say, God, tell me, what do I need to do, and what have I been afraid of that led up to this moment? What has been feeling out of my control that then this moment of compression showed it to me? That is then what you saw would happen to Lot. It didn't work so well. There was a moment where they could live apart, but then there was a moment where they were brought back together. And eventually they had to part ways. But that is what I want you to think about in your seasons of life. The worst days that you have are tremendous opportunities to show you what you're kind of not being very focused on in the period of expansion. And there's some ideas we have that we have to let go. And there's some paths that we've been on that it's not what God wants us to do, and we have to let it go. And you'll know that you're sort of on that rhythm when the compression season happens, and actually you see you're different because you're thinking about it differently. Everything in the way you're responding to it, there's no fear. Even if it's something that would bring you to a fear pattern in the past, it won't bring it to you now. One of the ways in which we're suffering with cause and effect and reaping what we sow is over what's happening in the earth. And this is what's happening in our homes, and this is what's happening on our plate, and we're all part of it, and we're all affected by it. I have a list of regenerative farms for you to see the way in which farming should be, the way in which they did farming and followed farming practices in the Bible. And when you follow farming practices that are in line with nature, that support nature, that honors nature, you're going to have soil that looks like this. It's going to be filled with microorganisms. It's going to be filled with deep roots. It's going to allow it so that when it rains like this, the water absorbs a tremendous more than it would otherwise. And it's going to be part of when you go through seasons of expansion or compression, it's going to see you through. So when there's times of where the seed is growing, but then there's times of just more drought and such, it's going to see you through those seasons. That's when you follow the rhythm of the way farming practices should be. But the majority of us are taking part in foods that are coming from soils that look like that. And the reason why soils look like that now is because after World War II, they had all of this extra materials that they used to make bombs, and they wanted to repurpose them. And so the way they repurposed them is they used them to fix nitrogen in the soil. So they use it as fertilizer. You can't grow something in soil unless nitrogen is fixed into that soil. And so this man named Fritz Haber, or Haber, I don't know, something like that, they found a way to use those World War II chemicals and fix the nitrogen in the soil so that they did not have to practice the farming practices that they were doing for thousands of years. And so then, all they had to do then was till the soil. Tilling is when you take this big industrial machine and it rips up all the weeds. So they could rip up all the weeds, which then, remember you have to have deep roots, so that all the microorganisms are deeply embedded into the soil, and then the soil is so rich that it can absorb the water. If you use a tilling machine, it severs those roots, it rips them up. And so all you have to do is use a tilling machine, it rips up all the weeds, throw down the seed, put that chemical fertilizer into it, and it'll grow. But then, what happens? The Dust Bowl happened. The Dust Bowl happened in the 30s, something. They call it, it was basically like a storm of dust. You couldn't grow anything. Millions of people had to move because they damaged the soil. And what happens when you damage the soil? The soil is the number one way to fix carbon, to sequester carbon into it. So for now, us that are concerned with all of the CO2 emissions that are up in the atmosphere, there's no amount of good practice you could do to get CO2 out of the atmosphere. All you could do is stop CO2 from going into it. But to get that CO2 out of the atmosphere, it's going to happen through the soil. You have to fix the soil, and it'll start to take that CO2 and put it down. So, you're supposed to have a rotation of crops, and you're supposed to have livestock walking around, and as they're going to the bathroom, they're stomping it into the ground, and then you run a rotation, the next group of animals come, and they stomp it into the ground. And it's this ecosystem, the way farms are supposed to look like. But then we spoke about that you can't even really call it farming. What we have today is factory farming, and it's called concentrated animal feeding operations. That's really what they are. So if you're eating a chicken, a turkey, or a farmed fish, almost 100% of that is coming from one of these factory farms. And if you're eating a cow, about 75% of it is coming from these factory farms. And so where you should have animals that are living life as an animal, according to the biology that the Lord has set into them, we are going to see a different story. I showed you the chicken. Notice that the chicken has half of its beak cut off. This is a standard chicken, and it's a standard practice that happens in these farms. And the reason why it happens is because they're not accustomed to living in the way in which they have established to have so many chickens in a small amount of space. They use their beaks to assess temperature. They're a highly sensitive part of their body. They cut off the beak because those chickens will start to peck at other chickens or themselves from living in a way that they shouldn't live. They live looking in close quarters like that. So when you stuff chickens in such close quarters like this, it goes against their natural instincts to be aware, to walk around, to assess. They're very curious animals. And so they have to cut their beaks. And oftentimes this is done without anesthetic. Practices that you wouldn't be allowed to do with your own animals are allowed to be done to livestock animals because it's not regulated. And states have different regulations, but they are exempt from these cruelty laws that do exist. if you were to just do this out and just find an animal and start doing it. Because it's used for food, it doesn't fall under many of these regulations, and a lot of these practices are done without an aesthetic. If you're a male chick in a factory farm, they just discard you altogether. And so oftentimes they discard it alive. They'll just put them in these little grinding machines alive, and then that'll be some feed in some other way. Some of them times they put it into a garbage bag and they just close the top of it and they suffocate that way. These are standard practices. I could not show you videos of this because it was too disturbing. And sometimes they put music behind videos, and I don't like when they do that because it's disturbing enough. So this is just the picture. I just really couldn't bring my heart to show it. This is the way a pig should be, looking, living out into the grass. That's wild grass. The best grass to have are ones that have so many different varieties of plants growing through it. Now, pigs are extremely intelligent. They're ranked the 5th most intelligent animals in the world, with chimpanzees and dolphins and orcas. They are smarter than young children. And they're empathetic. They show with this intelligence, they can see reflection in a mirror. They can capture that skill before a child would at a young age. What they do then with pigs in these close quarters, this is what it's going to look like, standard setup. They can sense fear. They can sense death. They can perceive this discord. And as a result, they are also cannibalistic. When they are in an environment of such high amounts of stress, they will start to hurt each other. So a standard practice is that they will take their teeth out. And then they will cut their tails and they'll castrate them, often without anesthetic. They will operate like this until they can't stand anymore. This is an example of a pig that wouldn't be able to stand anymore. They call that type of a pig a downer. That's the industry term of a downer. And mother pigs usually have just that much space to be in, and their babies will nurse from them over on the side. And another tremendous issue is that all of the waste, oftentimes they are sitting in waste, all of the waste, instead of it being used in a proper way, going into the soil and fertilizing the soil and fixing the nitrogen in the soil, they're pulled into these big, big enclosures. And this seeps into the groundwater and into the irrigation systems. And if you have some agricultural farm nearby where they're growing spinach or such, this is where you have spread of disease, because then it goes into that, and then that's used to water those plants. And anyone who lives near those will tell you how devastating it is, the stench of that feces collecting, that's filled with so much chemical and rot and all. This is the life in a standard pig that you're eating if you don't know what farm it came from. We have farms here that treat pigs the way pigs should be treated. That's the list that I have to show you. That's what stops me from taking a bite of something if I know it was tortured in such a way. That is the only thing that could stop a person, I think, is an offense in the heart. I just want to show then, because that's the common, is the chicken and the pigs, is the cows. There's other animals, obviously. There's turkeys and there's sheep and there's goats and such, and these same harmful practices are done to them as well if they come from a factory farm. That is a standard process. But with the cows, you can see between the mother and the baby, mother cows were designed by God to have a very strong bond with their calf. It's in their instinct to have this bond. And what happens is, on a factory farm, they take the calf on day one. The mother gives birth to the calf, and they take the calf away. And they give the calf a synthetic milk so that that cow can then be put on this rotation, and all the milk that was supposed to go to the calf, it goes right into the industry, into production. And then that baby calf is transported elsewhere. Often, about 1 in 8 die in that transportation. Oftentimes, their vocal cords become damaged from crying for its mother. And if you're a male calf, you go right into the veal. That's just a baby calf. But you go right into the veal industry. So veal, notice how it has a very short leash. The reason why they do that on baby male calves is so that they don't work their muscles. Because if they work their muscles, the meat becomes tougher. And they want the meat to taste the best. So they keep them confined to a short leash where they can sit down and maybe walk a foot or two. And that's about it before they're sent to slaughter. We were given dominion over the earth. That dominion was not to step as heartless beings on the earth. That dominion was to be responsible for these animals. And when we knowingly or unknowingly engage in something as horrific as this is, because it is horrific. It is horrific to torture any life. We will reap the consequence of it. And a lot of the diseases, the primary causes of death that I read to you on there, have to do with the heart. And it is a heart offense. It's no wonder. Heart disease became the #1 cause of death in the 1950s. And that's about the same time that these factory farms started to thrive. They began with the chickens in the 1920s and the 30s and grew to the pigs and the cows in the 60s and in the 70s. And it just gets more and more and more. And so we're getting more production, and the people making the money is not the farmers. The farmers are losing money. They're bankrupt. They go through life being bankrupt about hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars, and many of them kill themselves because of the stress of that. The people making the money are big, big farming manufacturers. They're the ones that we're talking big agricultural business. They're making the farming. I will charge that big farming has even more a hand on politics than even big farming, because we need food to eat. This is so big that if you're a reporter and you go into one of these places to take pictures, you could be sent to prison longer than if you committed some sort of assault on a person. Then they give you a gag order where if you even talk about it, they'll crucify you. So, just to get to the heart of it, there is a sentiment in the Old Testament why they said not to mix veal with dairy. That was one of the laws in Leviticus. And some people have the perspective is the reason behind that is because it is a dishonor to mix a baby calf with its mother's milk that was meant to nurture it. Remember that Jesus came to show us that the physical laws in Leviticus were really spiritual laws. That if you even look at your brother with hate, you just murdered him. So just understand the spiritual ramification of endorsing and participating in a cycle of torture, of what that might mean to the soul. And all I'm here to say is not to say judgment about anything toward any other person. I'm just telling you what I've come to understand of love, and it makes you sensitive to the bigger picture. The #1 reason for the rainforest being deforested, for microplastics being in the ocean, for CO2 going up into the atmosphere, for energy crises, pollution crises, all of these outbreaks, largely is due to antibiotic resistance, is due to miscare of the animals that we eat. It's because of the farming that's being done at that mass level. They use so many antibiotics, not just because of disease, but because the animals will get fatter faster. And so now when they're growing in these close quarters, and the microorganisms become resistant to those antibiotics. And so then what gets spread out? Those types of microorganisms, those types of bacteria, so that then when they come into us, when you actually need the antibiotic, they will already have learned a way to exist without it killing them, the antibiotic. And so it doesn't work on you. This is all from misapplication of farming practices. They are clearing the rainforest to grow acres and acres of food to feed livestock. Not to feed the hungry people in the world, but to feed livestock. Because they have ingrained in us a taste that they lace with chemicals and additives and addictive components that make us wanting to come back for more and more and more. So they get richer, we get sicker, they get more money because then we go and use their healthcare services, and the cycle goes round and round. And then we die off, and so the population seems low enough for them to make their money and such. This is what's happening. And with the fishes, just so you know about the fishes, some say, well, then I'll eat the fish. If you're doing, the type of fishing that takes place is not that, you imagine the grandfather taking the grandson out with the fishing pole and they're catching the fish. They have nets the size of football fields that are scooping up the fish and any bycatch that would include dolphins and sea turtles and sharks that are just killed just because they were in the way. And they scoop them put them onto the ship, and then they asphyxiate to death. And they just came out with a study in 2025 that shows that it is one of the most painful ways to die through asphyxiation, that they go through agonizing pain for the 10 to 20 minutes that they asphyxiate in the oxygen, in the atmosphere. And so that fishy smell that you smell, it's just because they were tortured, that they released that smell in that process of suffocating to death. That's why it matters about looking about where you're getting your food. It's not a sin to eat animals. It is a sin to torture animals. It is. And it's part of us that we have so much issues really come from heart desensitivity. And this is about coming back into the sensitivity. That's why it matters to pay more money if it means you're getting an animal that was treated with respect. It matters because God will give you the money that you need. He will provide you everything you need to support life. What does he say in Deuteronomy? You have a choice, either life or death, blessing or curse. Choose the blessing. And sometimes we're looking for a miracle in our bodies when the miracle is following the balance that he already has set up in nature. There's a leverage of good practices that we could follow that will bring his miracle coming through to us. Sometimes we need a show of a miracle, but oftentimes we need to live a life of moderation and simplicity. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. That word meek, that deep Aramaic wording of the word meek, is about discipline in the God force. With a powerful display of God's power, discipline in it. That's moderation. Living a life of moderation and simplicity. So the question is, how do we do it? What is the first thing you do to get back onto the rhythm? Number one is you set your circadian rhythm. You do this by seeing the sun in the morning. You see the sun in the morning and you see the sun at night. That's the sun. This is a picture I took right here at Fallowfield Beach. You look at that sun in the morning, and it sets every biological response system in your physiology. It determines what hormone releases when. As you see the sun coming up, you say, Our Father, thank you. I love you. I am here. I am willing to surrender to you. Give us this day everything we need. Yours is the glory. Yours is the power. Yours is this place that heaven can come on earth. You are the bridge of that. You say, Your will be done. Forgive me of every debt. Let me forgive every debtor. This is you coming into alignment. You just set your entire day according to his will. And then you start eating foods that are filled with life. What are those foods? They're going to be your vegetables. They're going to be your nuts and your seeds. They're going to be the juices, the fresh juices that you get from the carrots and the celery and the pomegranate and all of the fresh juices that you can come and just start getting vitality in. And when you go in and then you have your meal, you ask yourself this question: am I at peace with this meal? Because if you think you're doing something that's wrong, whether it's wrong or not, it matters, because if you think you're disobeying something, that affects the heart. You have to be at peace with everything that you eat, and you have to bless it, because what you're truly eating is the blessing. There was a part of that list which was respiratory illnesses. A lot of us are hurting our respiratory system by cleaning supplies, Windex, bleach, air fresheners, perfumes, makeup with fragrances, shampoos with fragrances, lotion with fragrances. They are destroying the lining of the lungs. And we may not know that we're doing that. And so it can cause chronic dysfunction in the body, headaches, migraines, skin issues, etc., just by coming into contact with those harsh cleaning chemicals. There are ways to clean your home and to find different fragrances that come from natural or essential oils that will not harm your body. There's ways to find makeup that will not harm your body. So that's another thing to just be aware of, is what you're breathing in. And now when you go to sleep, it is very important that as the sun goes down, you stop looking at blue light. The blue light would be the television. The blue light would be the telephone. The blue light is telling your body it's time to wake up. And then it suppresses the hormones that allow you to go into the deep sleep. And when you go to sleep, you should not have any devices on Wi-Fi near you, because they are going to interrupt the rhythm of your body when they get the spike from the Wi-Fi. And it is best to shut it off if you can. And it is best, if you can't turn your phone on airplane mode, put it way across the room. But make sure Wi-Fi is off, because if Wi-Fi is on, it will continue to talk to it throughout the night. If you have Bluetooth on, it's going to continue to talk to it continuously throughout the day. One of the worst offenders in a home is a baby monitor. And where does the parent put it? Right next to the baby. Because it's talking to the base 100% of the time. And you are the baby's in the crossfire of that signal. And children, their skulls are not fully developed and their bodies are smaller, so they're even getting a greater impact. We really are the guinea pigs of this technological innovation. This didn't exist 100 years ago. We are the guinea pigs of what's going to happen now with the cancers and all this, and with the pods in the ears that are not connected, and the smartwatches that are talking and taking signals right here in the body's force field. These are things we might not even think of. This is how you come back. But everyone has a different place that they have to come. So what are any questions you might have about it? Yeah.
Is it good to turn off the router at night?
Yes. You want to turn it off because you want to have the restorative sleep. God will heal you in your sleep. And the hormones that will further get your body into deep stages of REM sleep really peak between the windows of that 8 and 12 a.m. So if you're going to bed past that window, you're missing that. And it's very hard to do it without using the sun to recalibrate you. Because I was in that wrong system. I was going to bed past 11 o'clock, and I needed to be reset by the sun in the morning. And then I became very sensitive to light.
So when's the best time to go to bed?
Well, I go to bed around 9:30. That's just because I have so many things I want to do.
So,
And daylight savings time is going to change. But the key is that when the darkness comes down, when darkness is upon us, don't look at the blue light, because that's going to wake up the body. It's going to say it's morning. And get incandescent lights. Incandescent lights.
they still sell them?
They do. It was illegal, and then when Trump came in, it became legal. I don't know if Trump had anything to do with it, but it was illegal when Biden was in, and then when Trump came in, they were legal again, and we bought them. Yeah.
What do you think about raw milk versus grass-fed?
If you're going to eat raw milk, you're going to want to make sure it's grass-fed. Because if you're having raw milk and it's not grass-fed, now you're getting it from a sick cow. This is another thing. Don't look for products in the animal industry that say organic. It's just a gimmick. That just means that they're feeding the cow organic corn. Cows should eat grass or hay.
Vegetables the same way?
No, vegetables, it matters to be organic. If you eat a vegetable that's not organic, that means it's growing in a soil that is using those pesticides that cause cancer, and then it's killing the nutrition in the broccoli, in the cucumber. So not only are you then exposing yourself to the chemical from the surface, you're now eating something that is nutritionally in a deficit compared to what it should be. But when it comes to the raw milk, having raw milk has the digestive enzymes in it to digest it. When you pasteurize it, you lose those digestive enzymes. So some people can't tolerate milk, but they can tolerate raw milk because it has the digestive enzymes. I would just make sure you're getting it from a farm and you know the way that they're caring for it. Calves should at least be with their mother for 6 months. They should not be separated from the mother the way they do in factory farms. And they should be with them they start to wean them. It's a weaning process, but usually the standard to look out for, the question to ask is, how long are your calves with the mothers? And they should say 6 months. Yeah.
One question. So you've given us definitely a lot of information, which is appreciative. And you spoke about some of the foods we take in can be the root cause of physical disease, but also can it be a cause of any type of spiritual deficits? And if so, is there any like defense that we can have against any kind of spiritual things we taken in from food?
Oh, it's funny because there's sort of like, it works both ways. Spiritual will cause you to eat the things that are not good for you, but then by eating the things that are not good for you, it opens up more of the spiritual attack at the same time. So it's kind of funny, like what came first, the chicken or the egg? From my experience, fasting, and you can fast not just by eating only having water, but fast by doing a Daniel fast, fruits, vegetables, very little amounts of fat, because then it allows the liver to get a break. You want to give the liver a break. Sometimes you have to do the fast to be strong enough in your physicality to see what you're hiding from. And now let's say you're eating foods that have a very low, let's say you're eating, food like a pig that was tortured in life. There's impact in that meat. There's adrenaline that's put into the meat from the stress hormone. They know this. This is why right now chemists are trying to take the stress hormone out of pigs. They want to take that stress hormone out so that they can essentially keep doing these practices without infecting the meat. But if you do that, you eat a very low vibrational food, let's say. That then makes it harder for you to think straight. Why is one of the big results of eating a food that's not good for you? It gives you brain fog. You can't think, right? So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but so basically if you eat a food and you say to the Lord, is this food in line with your will? And if you're not even asking that question, then now get into the habit of it, then it'll start to change what you're attracted to. And then it kind of gives, this body is the vessel that holds the temple of the Lord. Then you can start to think straight, and then you can start to see, I struggle with judgment. I'm quite judgmental. Like I look at those Muslims and I just think da-da-da-da-da, right? If you start to realize I really am filled with this death. And it helps you to heal just by first knowing what cycle you're caught up in. And do you have this follow-up to that? Because I don't know if I answered that
No, you
specifically.
did.
Because then what you could do is when you do that cleanse, do it for at least, you want to do it for at least a week. The hardest threshold to get past is the 3rd day. Jesus, it's interesting, this number of 3, getting past that 3rd day. Do it for at least that duration of time, and your body will expel what doesn't belong. When you do fast like this, oftentimes the blood is very, there's a lot of things in you that are poisonous. And to get rid of all of those acids is when you eat very alkalizing things, and it helps to purify the blood. And then it'll really help simultaneous with your mind. You have to stay in prayer the whole time. Never do a fast or a cleanse without prayer all of the time. Because you need that strength, and all you have to do is call for it. And it'll kind of work along the way with it. Yes?
So I do the juice fasting, which you referred to, the Daniel diet. I didn't know that's what it would be called.
They call it.
What would you recommend for helping get through those hard days, like day 3 weeks?
Because if you wake up early in the morning and you go and you look at the sun anywhere, I see people when we're driving to go to the beach, they're standing on the bridge and they're just looking. What happens is that you're gonna start to reset it, you're gonna be tired earlier. Some people say, oh, I can't do a fast while I'm working. Actually, the best time to do a fast is while you're working, because if you have idle time, that's torture. The best time to do a fast is in the busyness of your day, and keep eating something every 2 hours. Because if you're doing something like that with very little fat, you don't want the blood sugar to drop.
We do juice every 2 hours.
Okay, so don't go longer than that. Are you taking any, like, are you having any slightly cooked foods, or is it only juice?
Not during that time. Sometimes I'll do, like, I'll start with a very clean, nutrient-dense meal after the sun goes down, and I give myself a little bit of to
To
get
get
that.
in. You have to see
But
what
I do
works.
take that, sea moss and mullet, and
Okay.
that.
I found that when I walking is another way that will change that impulse of I need something right now. If you see that you're starting to crash at a certain time, a lot of people crash at 2 to 3 o'clock. You want to get ahead of that cycle. No, at that time I'm going to go out and do something physical, because you, by doing something physical, it'll change blood pressure, it'll change glucose levels, and it'll help stabilize. And if you're doing that, saying, God, help me, okay, and Lord, come all upon me, start helping me, start doing something like that, it'll help you get from point A to point B. I'd say when you're doing these cleanses to keep yourself, have a very busy schedule, so that you,
I let it roll.
okay, so you have a busy schedule. And sometimes you can be down on the floor with a 3-year-old and just roll,
Yeah.
right? So, and then there's also variations that you can do. If you're cleansing if the cleanse is happening and it's too much, the way you slow down a cleanse is like having an avocado. If you have an avocado, you're going to bring fat into it, it's going to slow it down a little bit. Sometimes we have to be a little easy on ourselves and we have to slow down. We can't just jump into this, thing. We have to don't be in a rush. You're already healed. You're actually already healed.
So I wanted to share the reason I started that, saying that I was diagnosed with PCOS, diabetes, and I started taking the metformin that made me feel even worse than before taking it. And since I do this, I tried to do this for like a week every month, and I kept my A1C perfect, and I haven't been taking medication. And a great side effect has been some weight loss. So.
There's a book for diabetes. Actually, I shared that title with you. And it's all pretty much Daniel, it doesn't say that it's Daniel fast, but it's eating this way for diabetes, and it says the effects of having the best numbers. The name just left me right now, but I want to share that with you. Anyone else?
So for people who are fasting and have a lot of toxins in their body, and they start to have detox symptoms and things like that, do you recommend a binder?
So a good binder, it'll change on person. For me, spirulina is a good binder. It really kind of goes case by case, but yes, you do want to look at a good binder. I do very well with spirulina, with barley grass juice powder. So I make a smoothie with banana and orange as a base, with cilantro. You see, there's a list of heavy metals, detoxers. Healthline, I think, puts out this list. They have maybe 15 things, and then you just choose at least 5 from that list. It's pretty good. On that list is spirulina, wild berries, barley grass juice powder, Atlantic Jewels, chlorophyll. It's a Healthline. I can send that to you too. I'm going to put all of this that you're asking for up on my website, because I think that's going to be the helpful way. All of the list of Regenerative Farms I'm going to put up on that list. It's like 26 pages of what we have in this area. And I would highly suggest doing that every single day that you're on a cleanse. So make a smoothie with any type of binder like that. I notice a difference when I crash at 2 o'clock. So when I have that detox, I'll have it at 2 o'clock because that's my crash moment. And when I have that, it helps me, perks me right back up. There are sometimes other things that people do take for bonding, but it depends. It's like, I've taken Morinda. There's different herbs that you can, but we can muscle test. Muscle testing is very helpful. Kinesiology muscle testing. Yeah.
Are you gonna put your cheese recipes up on the website?
Oh, my recipes.
Are you making Ercon the?
Einkorn, yes, so is I just bought a miller, stone mill. They were on backwater, so it's coming in September. So the stone mill, so 24 hours after your grain is milled, it loses 95% of its nutritional value. So the bread of life is really just the bread of tiredness. That's what happens after you eat the grain, because it actually lost 95% of its nutritional value. So if you get a stone mill, you can have all of the grain berries. They store for years. They don't go bad. And then you just run it through your stone mill, and you have your flour right there. And it's significantly less money to buy grain berries than it is to buy flour. So if you just spend the money to buy the stone mill itself, which is a few $100s, in a year it would already pay itself. And then, if we have these disasters that we're worried about having, you can store that grain without worrying of it going moldy and such in your closet. Einkorn flour is an ancient grain. It was not touched by the chemical industry. The wheat flour that they give now is a hybridized wheat. They took that wheat flour, they changed the gluten structure of it, and it's very difficult for the gut to process it. On top of that, they use glyphosate as a desiccant to dry out the wheat crop. That's a cancer-causing chemical. So now, what people are really reacting to oftentimes is that glyphosate component. They could go to Italy and they say, oh, I was fine. But also what might be happening in Italy is they might be having it very freshly milled. And so they don't have that much of an issue. You should be getting energy after you're eating grain, not losing energy. So if you're losing energy, this is to know if you're reacting to a food. If after you eat it, you get brain fog or you get tired, something in it was not reacting right with your body. That's your clue. Then start to take it out. Then you're going to notice the addiction. A lot of addictions or pangs is, this is where the demon component comes in. A lost soul is looking for a place to rest. If you have something not in accord with God's will, that's a place to rest. They can rest there because they're in the separation, and so they could be in you wherever there's separation in you. That actually makes the addiction that much stronger. And so when you stop giving into it though, and you start becoming healed, they don't want to rest there anymore. So for my mother, coming to the Lord actually started with having a very severe health crisis. She had to eat healthy, and her whole personality changed because a lot of demons didn't want to stay with her anymore because she wasn't feeding them. She wasn't feeding her body in a way that kept her in separation, that then was not making a very welcoming home to them coming to rest in her. That's why it's funny about your question, what comes first. Because sometimes the soul reason causes the flesh reason, but sometimes fixing the flesh for a moment helps you get to the soul reason. Mm-hmm. Isn't it funny the soul reason to everything is the soul? S-O-L-E reason is the S-O-U-L. Another question?
And some of those demons be parasites.
So the funny thing about parasites, I'm going to throw out of this cutting edge theory, don't know if it's true, is that every single thing that we have going, that your body's actually looking to help you. And so when you see the evidence of, let's say, a fungal response in the body, let's say a coating over the tongue, let's say it's some discharge, let's say it's whatever. What's happening is the fungus is trying to create this movement to get whatever is causing the dysfunction out. So oftentimes we see, oh, we don't like the fungus, but the fungus is actually helping you come back into homeostasis. And so you could ask yourself this question: why would I allow parasites to stay in the body? Why wouldn't my body just rid it of the parasites? Because I'll tell you now, your immune strong enough to get rid of every single parasite. Nothing comes into, your immune system is strong enough to heal your entire body. In fact, when you fast and all you drink is water for long periods of time, your body goes into a phase of autography, it just starts to heal itself. So your body actually has all the answers it needs. You could just give it some support. So why would you come into agreement with a parasite? Why would it not leave? And so this is a theory put out that there are certain states of being that is just too hard to bear, such as shame, such as betrayal, such as post-traumatic stress. These things that are very hard for a soul to bear. And so we come into agreement with a parasite because they'll bear the brunt of it. In other words, if we actually come to God and allow the heart of Jesus to wash over us and to be healed of every past experience, allow it to be subtracted, knowing that everything fades away except love, and we can just focus on those pure things, and we allow that redemptive work to be done in us, we won't need to come to agreement with parasites in the first place to then bear the brunt of emotions that are too death-ridden. That's why parasites and demonic and edemic, they're very related. There's consciousness that is existing. But if you, instead of looking at you being attacked, and instead of seeing it as actually every answer is already with you, it's funny because mothers carry the seed. In your baby girl carries the egg that will be in her baby girl. The answer to everything was already in the creation. Everything that you ever could need actually already exists. That's why if you ask according to the Lord's will, in the name of love, which is Jesus, but not just the name, like you have to love that. You have to come into communion with that. When you ask that, it releases what God has already given. He's already given the whole world. He gave Jesus at the beginning. He's the whole world. The whole world has already been given to you. Every single cure to every single ailment has already been provided. So, when you come from that standpoint, it's sort of like when you know that the end is already in the beginning and the beginning is already in the end, and you understand that it can never stop, then you realize that actually the healing is already in me. And I just have to be patient, and I just have to know that that's true. And then I just have to take every single day as it comes. Don't worry about tomorrow, because what happens is that don't be caught up in the past. You're caught up in the past, and it's robbing you of the present moment, and you're so focused on the future that you lost the holy now. So people are either caught up in the past or they're worried about the future, which they then are not living intentionally. Your immune system can kill every single piece of that and can come into alignment with every single piece of that. And when you know that to be true and you believe it, your body, it'll just show it. And that's the thing about parasites is, yeah, you can do the parasite cleanses and get rid of these parasites that they can look at, but there's so many little microscopic parasites they don't even know about. And the way for your immune system to do its job, it has to come in communion with love and who you are. That's who you are. You are a love being, and when you stray off that path, that's where all disease and such comes.
I was just thinking about like meal prepping. Like, I see, I look at grocery stores that are like what to buy for the book, but like meal prep.
I prep what I'm going to do on Sunday, and I have a planner, and I write what I'm going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I do the easiest thing on Sunday. Sunday is my day of rest, but for some people it might be Tuesday. Figure out when your day of rest is. It has to be a rest from structure. So that doesn't mean you don't work. Hey, if mothers didn't work on Sunday, no one's eating, right? It means a rest from structure. So what I do is I say, this is in my home, because I have a lot of moving parts. I have 4 little children, I have my husband, and I have my mother, which is like 10 children. So then I say to them, I literally write out every day, I separate the house, I divide all the rooms by 6, and I write on a day which 3 rooms I'm going to do a day. And that's all I do, is whatever's on the list. I don't think anymore, because I have too many things to do. So when I go down that list, Monday says do this and this and this, that's all I have to do. I don't think about anything else. And if you stay in that rhythm, let's say you weren't able to do Tuesdays, don't worry, go on to Wednesday when you're on Wednesday, and you'll get back to Tuesday on the come around. Yeah, we are wasting too much time anticipating future moments. That's why if you just use the clarity in mind, once you start eating different, you'll have brain clear. And start planning and allowing yourself that day of Sabbath, that day of rest from structure. Where you could go, you could even go and just enjoy weeding the field if you like weeding, I do. That could be something you enjoy, it's not structured, and that's still part of your Sabbath. But you have to stop one day and not feel anxious about anything. In fact, you're not supposed to feel anxious about anything anyway. Because anything that you're anxious about has just become your God. God, him saying to only fear the Lord, it's not that the Lord wants to be feared, it's a sign of respect. That's what that word meant in the Old Testament. It was talking about redemption. God's judgment over the earth is about redemption. That's what it means in Hebrew. And so the fear of the Lord was a sign of respect. And it's actually showing where your treasure is. And so if you're fearing something that's other than God, and you're not supposed to fear God in the first place because the Lord will give you a spirit of fear. This is all the paradoxes. This is how you have to make sense of all these things, because otherwise you'll see a Bible contradiction. That the only way you can make sense of it is in the heart, for the particular moment that you're in. If you're fearing something other than the Lord, you've just made that thing your God, because you've just given it power. And so the more that you start to get in rhythm, you'll say, ooh, no, I'm a loved being, and everything that I ever needed was already here at the start of creation. And so everything I need is already given to me, and actually the Lord already knows what I need without me even saying it. The birds don't need to cry out to be fed. The Lord already knows. How much more would the Lord give to you? Look at what you do to your children. How much more is the Lord going to give to you than what you would do for your own children? You know, us who give wicked kids all the time. But anyway, that's what I'm saying is that you start getting the clear mind, then you kind of map out when you get overwhelmed, okay, I just need to do this day, this day, that day. And for some people, it helps them not think about 20 million things at the same time. Because especially for people wearing different hats. I'm wearing a hat as a mother, I'm wearing a hat as a math teacher, I'm wearing a hat as a homeschooler, a health coach, and then as a wife, and then as a daughter, and all these things, right? And a cleaner, and a cook. I cook every meal. Almost every meal. And then, but anyway, so my point is too much, right? You just start one. Rome wasn't built in a day. That's the other thing. Rome wasn't built in a day, one brick at a time. This might be overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. One brick at a time. This is me coming to this place as a culmination of one brick at a time. But it is not impossible with God. With God, all things are possible.
Okay, I'm gonna ask first, it's probably the same thing you're gonna ask. All right, so you're a vegetarian mostly. You have a family to cook for every day, probably 3 meals. So are you gonna share what you cook for your family as this?
Sure.
Because it's not easy to cook with no meat. I mean, I've tried, it's hard. For me, meat is like the thing for me. That's my protein, that's my meal, that's what my husband wants, So, just give us an example of what you cook for breakfast and lunch and dinner for your family.
All right, so this is how it works. So we wake up, everyone has water with lemon. Then we have celery juice. Then we have carrot juice. And then we have a smoothie made up of spinach and wild blueberries and banana.
And you have to make all that.
Oh no, I have help. My husband does the lemon water. My mother usually does the juicing.
Okay, because juicing takes a while to do, doesn't it?
See, this is the funny thing about having lots of people around. Although it might seem more, then you have more hands.
Yeah.
But then if you have less people around, you have more time, and you don't have to get distracted. Juicing is incredibly easy because you've got the juicer doing it. It's the beauty of these juicers.
I'm sorry, do you allow for you to give a certain amount of time in between the different uses?
I wait like 15 minutes. Only because I use it as medicine. To me, this is medicine. I don't go to the doctor. And I don't take my children to the doctor. We only use holistic ways, and we use muscle testing to determine everything. So I use herbs to help anything, and I muscle test what I need to do. So it's worth it to me to invest that time, because to me, this is what helps them not get sick. The last time that Charles was very sick, I think was last Thanksgiving, or it was Christmas. It was one of those times.
You must have to go to a farm or the grocery store a lot if you're going through all those herbs and fruits and vegetables because
I go twice
it
a
takes a
week.
lot to do that.
But I get a lot of things. So I get local farm bag, which delivers to the house on Friday. And then I get an Azor shipment. This is a drop-off of organic farms that it pulls from throughout the country. And there's a drop-off in Bluffton. And so I get things in bulk. I get my chickpeas, I get the cannellini beans, I get the red kidney beans. The hardest thing about this is just knowing how to cook.
Yeah.
It's not so much where to get the food, it's knowing, oh, I don't even know what to do with it. So in the morning, after I kind of do that, that routine is such a well-oiled machine. I've been doing that for 6 years. So for me, it's just this well-oiled machine, and that's just what we do. It's become a pattern. The only hard thing about it is, let's say, cleaning. But then again, I have extra hands to help. I can't do any of this on my own. And it would be vain for me to ever say that I do. And you know, I have no problem receiving help. And that's one of the reasons why I get a lot of.
What do you think of protein powder?
So I am really not a fan. I know, I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of whey protein at all. A lot of the whey protein, that's for the separation. When they make cheese, the big industry for dairy is the cheese market, not milk. That leftover, that they're using that for the proteins, and they put a lot of other things in there that I wouldn't recommend. But you can get a cleaner version of it. I just mean the standard whey proteins. They're just making a lot of money or whatever. I'll use occasionally pea protein. So they do martial arts, and they don't have a lot of time to eat something before they go. I'll make a shake, I'll put a little pea protein, I'll put spinach and all these other things. It all has proteins in it. It's about having a variety. Now, if you're getting meat, and if you want to eat meat, there's ways to get meat. You could get, I know you have the refrigerator, freezer issue, but there's ways to get that meat. But by no means do we need to be eating the amount of meat that we eat anyway. It's too much anyway. So let's say we're gonna have so Barbara O'Neill, who's this health, to me an extraordinaire. She is from, right. So she says, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and dinner like a pauper. So that you really should stop eating at least 2 hours before you go to sleep. If you eat a meal and then you go to sleep, you can't sleep. Your body has to process the meal. It has to get the food out of the stomach, otherwise your body would die. It has to let it go. So it gives you enough time. If you eat dinner as the lightest, it's really a good thing. This whole idea of having 3 glorified meals 3 times a day is just a way sort of to keep us not healthy. So I kind of eat, my middle meal of the day is the biggest. My morning is kind of like this varied. And then I start with sweet potato. So the sweet potato with the skin, I eat that, great fiber, feeds the gut bacteria. And that's sort of the routine I like in the morning. Then comes lunchtime, that's when I'm gonna make I'll use, the way to get all of the nutrients, choose a grain, choose a nut, and choose a legume. Have that somewhere throughout the day. So that means you're either eating some, nuts are easy, the almonds and all of those nuts. And then your grain, it could be your rice, it could be your oats, it could be anything that agrees with you. And then your legume, that's your lentils and then you can have seeds too, like quinoa and such. So there's just these different, if you just have a little bit, one of each category, you've hit them all. But it depends what you personally want to do. So in the middle of the day, I make so many different things now. But if I had, if you make your meal plan on Sunday of what you're going to do, it's that easier. The easiest thing to do is start with breakfast and lunch. Start organizing breakfast and lunch. And then when you get more clear head, add dinner into the mix. But if you were to just say to yourself, I'm going to eat real food, saying no matter what, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to eat real food, that would just change everything off the bat. And then your brain's going to be more clear, so then you can be more intentional of like, I like this food group, how do I cook it? You had your hand up, I don't know if you were trying to wave at me. Oh.
No, I had a question. That's why I moved over there. I said, she's never gonna look over here.
No, I saw you, but then I saw. But for lunch, as an example, I eat a salad a day. So I take that salad, I get microgreens, which are super packed, nutrient dense stages of broccoli or peas or such. And you only need a little bit to have that. And our microgreen farmer delivers right to our house. So I'll take the spinach, I'll put the microgreens on it, I'll throw some pistachios in there, maybe some walnuts, some tomato or red onion, whatever, and I make my own dressing. Really, the devil's in the dressings. Okay? So you're gonna eat this beautiful, healthy thing, and then you're gonna put some dressing in it that has all of the things, the excitotoxins, the MSG. If something says natural flavors, usually it's hidden MSG. I do not use nutritional yeast, a lot of vegans do. I don't use it because of the process, it forms natural MSG. And I'll see people, they love their nutritional yeast, and I just don't do it. They say, oh, well, you can methylate it, but I don't need to. I'd rather just not include it in there. And so in that salad, then I make my own dressing out of cashews. All you have to do is soak the cashews in hot water, put it in a blender, put some tahini, put some maple syrup, a little salt, and a lemon, and blend it. It has the perfect balance of acid and fat and sweetness and such, and it's delicious. And it's so easy. And I just make a habit of that. If you make a little bit extra, then you have it for the next 2 days. And then I'll make hummus, and I'll have it with cucumber. I love making cucumber salad with cucumbers and tomato, and putting red onion in it, and a lemon or a lime, and some salt, maybe a little olive oil, and that's a beautiful snack. And, for my ideas of dinners, I make soups. Red lentil soup, it's the easiest thing. Red lentil soup is so easy. Or vegetable soup, minestrone soup, or cabbage soup. It's packed with all the different ranges of everything, and here it's a soup. It's just sort of redefining what you have in your mind of that, and then have it with some sourdough bread, or and it's so satisfying, and then you feel so good. And the broccoli, and I'll make the brown rice pasta and things like that. So, but it's a whole world, and it gets fun. Right now, just is like tiring the way I'm saying it. I don't want to sound tiring. Yeah.
Okay, can I go now?
Yes.
Okay, for a person that lives like Yvonne and I, very busy lifestyle, okay? We love to cook, but we don't get to cook often.
Mm-hmm.
We're so busy
Mm-hmm.
doing ministry that we just go out and eat. Well, you're not gonna get all this wonderful vegetables that are healthy and all that at a restaurant. We know that. But that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do when you live a busy lifestyle and you don't have time to go do this? I mean, yeah, we could go buy the produce and, from all these places that you suggest and all that, and we probably will. But, we eat out more than we eat in.
Have you ever heard of Sunbasket?
No.
Sunbasket is a company that sources organic produce, and they have all different types. You could eat Mediterranean, you can choose all these other things, but I can't attest to how they get the meats. And they make it for you, and they deliver it to you. And it's like if I were in your position, and you see, if I was in New York, there's just these organic juice bars that they make everything. And you could just get food off of them. I mean, actually, you have Delishio right over here. They're not all organic, but some of it is. And you can just start getting some things from them. Smoothies, juices, salads, glorified salads, all that, right here at Delishio. Then you have Sprout Mama, which has some things that are better sourced ingredients, the sourdough bread, things like that. So those are just two options that just came to mind over here. Then you have Healthy Habits, but I can't attest. See, a lot of these places are not using organic produce because it's kind of hard to find. But if you got Sunbasket, they would deliver like two meals for to you, and you don't have to cook it all. You can just eat right out, and you can say, okay, we'll just do these 2 meals and supplement it with 1 meal or something like that. At least you get 2 down that are healthier than otherwise. That's the way I would think if I were you, and I just didn't have any.
Well, see, we travel too. Well, here lately, she's traveled more than I have, but
Yes.
we travel a lot. Used to. You're going to, you don't know all these places when you're out. So that's what I'm saying. I want to do these things.
Yes.
But doing this for 40-something years of my life, I'm different places.
Yes.
You're not going to get healthy all the time. So I'm just trying to figure out how to balance it.
Well, so when here, let's just say I was visiting here.
Yeah.
I would frequent that spot. You have the Delishio, you have the Healthy Habits spot, you have the Sprout Mama, but I would make choices that have more life in them. If I wasn't able to cook myself, I could show you specifically on the menu things that will definitely bring vitality.
What's the best supplements? I know that's not really the ideal thing, but let's just say, for instance, that
Microgreens.
you're not gonna have time.
Microgreens.
Microgreens. Okay.
Oh, you mean a supplement to take with you across?
Yeah, I'm talking about something that you could do to
There's nothing
take the
really.
place of what
Okay.
vitamins, what minerals,
So
because we do a lot of that too.
if you're not getting a lot of sunshine, you want to take a vitamin D supplement.
We do that.
And though the best way to absorb it is the skin, so it's just an issue there. But then it depends on what you're needing. Calcium, magnesium. Standard Process sells calcium powder or calcifood powder. And you take the powder and you put it in some sort of something that you will enjoy to drink it in. And it's a very good source of calcium. Magnesium is something a lot of people are missing. So a magnesium supplement, I use Pure Encapsulations. They sell magnesium glycinate. So you can get that one. Or sometimes people need calcium and magnesium together to absorb it right. So you can do, Premier Research Labs has a product called CalMag, which has that in a proportion where sometimes someone needs calcium and magnesium. You can say, well, how do I know what I need? Well, there's a way to ask God that question. I ask him the question. And there's a way to muscle test that. Like James, come here for a second. So if I say, James, okay, give me resistance, okay? So I would just muscle test. He's giving me resistance against his hand, okay? If I say, his name is James. If I say, his name is Frank, it's going to go right down, right? There's something about just testing in the one spirit knows. So if I say, James has a bacterial problem. If I say that, James has a low level bacterial problem. If it goes weak, it means whatever I said, sort of teaching muscle testing here, so it means that it's, whatever I said was false. I say, James needs a magnesium supplement. And so that meant it was strong, so I give him a magnesium supplement. This is my way. It might seem crazy. I think it's crazier to be getting a bunch of advice from people that are atheists mostly, and telling you and just assessing all these things, and they say it's not biased, but it is. Because if you do not have a relationship with the one Lord, your God, you think you're being objective, but you're not. You're actually looking for something, and you'll find what you're looking for. And so all these sciences that they get, all of these studies, they're really the result of people's biases that they don't realize was in the hypothesis of the study to begin with. They're trying to find what they expect to see. And some say, oh, I didn't find it that way. And it's all variable. It's very hard. So I think that wired in us is actually truth. I think there's truth wired in us. And with a clear mind, that's sort of I say. So imagine I'm asking myself, God, do I need this magnesium supplement? I could feel yes. Or I could feel no. Should I take it with calcium? Yes or no. That's sort of what I ask on the inside.
Well, the final thing, and then I'll shut up, okay?
Yeah.
I deal a lot with not sleeping good, okay? I sleep, but not great.
Yes.
And fatigue.
Yes.
So, what does that usually mean you're lacking?
Okay, you could have, your hydrochloric acid levels could be quite low. When you eat food, the food is being processed in the stomach, the protein. And if it's low, that means you have undigested proteins that make its way down the digestive tract, going into the small intestine. And as it makes its way down, if your gut, if you've had an antibiotic in the last year, or 2 years or such, then that can impact that. But now you have undigested proteins going in places where it doesn't digest the protein anymore. And it becomes backed up. And things start to get slow. It's like a machine that kind of gets slower. And so you're not getting the full rest of digestion. If you eat a meal and still feel the meal in you, like 3 hours later, 4 hours later, that's a sign of low hydrochloric acid levels. You're not digesting the meal properly. You can do things to raise those levels. One thing you can do to raise those levels is drink a nice big glass of water 30 minutes before you eat. And when you sit to eat, do not drink anything. Do not drink this. Do not have any sip. Make sure you're hydrated so that you can sit for that meal and not drink anything. And in fact, if you need to drink something, probably there's too much sodium in the meal. Having too much sodium from processed foods is going to cause your body to retain water. So now you have added inflammation. So here in this process now, it throws off your system, your hormones. You could be eating things that are disrupting your hormones. And even the blue lights and all, the fluorescent light, all of this could disrupt the hormones if we're already in kind of a state of dysfunction. The best way to reset the hormones is literally going and seeing that sun. I am telling you, if you did one thing out of all of the things I had said, if you were only going to do one thing out of everything I said, it would be to see the sun. Because there's something about getting up and seeing the sun that re-energizes you, it sort of magnetizes you, and it sets the circadian rhythm which runs everything else. And if you did that for a week and said, I went out and I just walked in at 6, the sun here is rising at 6:49 around, or 6:53, something like that. If you got there and you saw it and you stayed there and you stared at that sun and you see how you feel, and make this the cardinal rule, after the sun goes down, do not look at any television, do not look at any phone, nothing. And just get into your bed and go to bed when that sun goes down. Tell me what you feel like after a week. And if you're traveling and the time zone is changing, go see the sun. Do not go to sleep until you go see the sun and have it reset you there. A lot of things just need to be reset because the circadian rhythm is off. So taking that into consideration, if your hydrochloric acid levels are still low, you can drink tonic to help rise it. Barbara O'Neill has a version of that in her book, and I have the book there. If there was a book to buy, I would recommend this one. This one.
Let me take a picture of
This is her updated book.
Hold on.
And you could look up so many things in it. When you eat a food, you want to ask yourselves these 2 questions. Does it feed the gut and does it protect the liver? If it fails at one of them, your food is partially poisoned.
Feed the gut and what?
Protect the liver. If you eat a food and it protects the liver and it feeds the gut, it's food. If it doesn't do one or the other, it's partially poisoned, and if it doesn't do either, it's poison. Most of anything coming out of the package, that I'm not talking about your pasta package, but I'm saying the package with all the ingredients, mostly is not food. And it's going to steal your energy. And it's going to just put sticks and stones in the whole rigging. You would see an improvement just by getting the circadian running to even have clarity about it. So traveling is tough, but when you're home, I'll tell you, making a soup is easy. It's very easy to make a soup. And the smell, and you start to excite the nose where you smell the nutrition. And that soup will do wonders because you make a big batch, and when you're hungry, you just pull out that soup. Your soup can last 3 days. And so you just kind of and you can just switch it up. That is the best way, I think, to manage eating, is start making soups. Because it lasts 3 days. So you're going to have 3 days of lentil soup. Then you can do 3 days of minestrone. Then you can do 3 days of cabbage soup. Then you can do 3 days of butternut squash, whatever it is. And just rotate that. That means every time you're hungry, you have that soup. Every time you know what's so easy? Smoothies. Just get your little Ninja, or whatever, in your smoothie thing, stuff it with spinach and bananas and blueberries and whatever it is that you like, maybe pea protein, or whatever protein you like. Blend it up, drink it. You'll be so surprised at how satisfying it is. So if you were to just implement making a soup and letting it last 3 days, the smoothies, and having just a salad, which all it takes is just kind of, and if you don't want to make a dressing, put lemon over it. Put a little olive oil on it. Watch out for the vinegar. Vinegar is acid. See, lemon is acid where it should be in the stomach, and when it gets processed down, it's alkaline. So it's called an alkalizing food, even though lemon itself is acidic. But vinegar is a different story. Processes as acetic acid, and it can be very dehydrating and can call the calcium out of your bones to put out the fire.
So even apple cider vinegar with the mother,
Yeah.
whatever they call it,
It's vinegar.
you know, you hear all these good things
I
that it's
know,
good for, blah, 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 you know.
I grew up drinking apple cider vinegar almost every single day.
Okay. Okay.
So that book that you just held up,
Yeah.
is that the number one besides the little dictionary you had?
I highly suggest, if you're not totally in, just love what I'm talking about, buy this one. If you're a nerd for this, buy the big one. And then if you want to see all the scripture throughout it, buy the big one. There's scripture all throughout this too. But this is like just a very user-friendly book. The only thing I'll say about her is just to remember the I am. What's the commandment? Moses' commandment, second commandment. Do not take the Lord's God in your name, you know his name anyway. And just remembering that I am is his name. So whatever we say, I am. So the only thing I'll say, I love her, but I also think you can be released from things beyond. I don't like getting too caught up in the physical. Because the body kind of knows how to take care of itself. Yeah.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is, the second one is the significant funny.
Okay.
Acid reflux.
Yes, yes.
How do I get rid of it?
Yes. Okay, so that can be due to several things. One is big time having water when you shouldn't. Drinking while you're eating. Because now it's not leaving. So the acid reflux comes from the weak reflex down here at the top of the stomach that is supposed to stop the acid from coming up. And that flap can become weakened over time. And because you can have acid, like gases coming up through it. So when you drink anything while you're eating, the hydrochloric acid level in your stomach is diluted and it can't properly digest. You'll notice a difference just from that. The second thing is laying down after you're eating. What you should do after you eat is take a walk, especially if you have insulin resistance. So anyone with kidney issue, you should walk. It takes the glucose that helps use it up, less impact onto the sugar, in the blood. So now, I had a hole in the lining of my stomach when I was maybe 18. They told me I had to be on Nexium the rest of my life. I had acid reflux, I was in agony. And when I had my first son, I couldn't eat past 4 o'clock. If I ate past 4 p.m. when I was pregnant with him, I had to sit in a chair the whole night. And I was working full time, it was crazy. I did not know these principles then. But actually, healing came to me with the lining, the hole in the lining of my stomach when I started meditating and started having peace and bringing peace into my heart because I had a very chaotic family. And when I started doing that, and I just said, okay, I'm going to sit here in this moment and I'm not going to think about anything else. I'm just going to think here. I started to get peace. Worrying will cause disruption in digestion and is very prevalent with the acid coming up and feeling of just the burn. So just by doing that, you should notice the difference. Do a cleanse. A cleanse would be eating the fruits and vegetables. Do it for a week. My cousin, her husband came visiting. He had he did a cleanse. He did this, so fruits and vegetables, that's it. No fat, just the fruits and the vegetables. Don't do nuts when you're on it. You want the liver to have a break. That's the reason for the no nuts. Nuts are extremely healthy, but sometimes you want to give the liver a break. You can give the liver a break by having no food at all, but that's harder. May not be helpful to you. Maybe it's a little helpful to eat some fruits, but that don't cause the liver to overwork, so we start to heal. So have very little fats to see how you do. Do it at least you should do it for 10 days. Daily for 10 days. Do it, and you're going to notice a difference. And you're going to be like, oh wow. And you'll start to want to incorporate more. So then your month will be, okay, I'll do 10 days of this, and then I'll kind of gradually come off of it, but then I'll go back into the cycle. And then you start to heal progressively, where you'll actually make different decisions. You know what? Instead of having the ice cream that is made from these tortured animals and consuming pus, a lot of that dairy has pus in it. Yeah. You're drinking pus.
Like pizza, cheese?
Yes, pus. Pus.
Can you say that again?
A lot of the dairy that you have is contaminated with pus.
There's a certain amount that's legal that can be put.
There's pus from infectious shit. Pus that comes out when you ooze.
And then wait, say that again.
When you ooze, the pus that you get from a whitehead and the pus comes out. in which the cows are with their infected udders. There's a picture on there that has an
Talk to me
infected.
like this, you're making it easier.
Okay, well, I'm saying that you're consuming a certain amount of pus because it's legal. Otherwise, you would not have these factory farms operating this way. They have to make it legal.
They can't.
You can't abuse a cow and not have a consequence that comes from that. The consequence, among other things, is pus. And
This comes with my second question.
yeah,
So this was really, like I said, this was bothering me. I fish, I like to fish.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me that I'm torturing, see, because
you gotta get a tub of water. Most fishermen, they have a bucket and you put the fish in the water. So it doesn't asphyxiate on your little area.
right, but what if you just kill it there and then?
Then it's not asphyxiate, but you gotta do it right away.
Okay, so
You gotta do it right away. You either know how to kill it right away,
Yeah,
you gotta do it.
that's no problem, I can.
You can do it, it's not a sin. I'm not gonna do it, but you can do it and it's fine.
These fish, everyone's telling you fish is stupid, they have no brains, they have no feeling, they
Oh,
don't feel anything.
one of the-
So I'm like, what's the
wait,
matter?
wait.
But now-
You know that fish are among, it's so, if you see a school of fish, the way that they are operating in a symbiotic relationship, you can make one movement and they all move in unison. They are sentient beings. They have awareness. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, but the fish I'm talking about.
They don't have those feelings? No,
They don't do any of that, they're just.
Oh, you know what they do with the lobsters? They boil lobsters alive.
Yes, we used to.
Look, they boil I grew up in an Italian household. They take the lobster and they throw it up. There's some of these practices. It's sort of like we are there's certain aspects of our lifestyle that's barbaric. If you can't watch your food go through the killing process, there's something going on. So this is the way I take it. If you can kill your own animal, I think that's the most honorable way to have it. I truly do. Because you spent your life taking care of that animal. You woke up early for that animal. You gave it, you really put, it's sort of a balance in it. Second best is to pay someone who's going to treat the animal like that. That's second best. That's truly a way to honor the animal. The only reason why I don't eat the animals is because I cannot kill an animal myself in my heart, which says to me, I'm not okay with doing something that I'm not okay doing myself. That's the only reason. It's not a sin not to do it. That's just where I am in my heart. I might change in 10 years. Who knows? And I don't care. If I change, fine.
Right.
But everything is about harmony and balance. And everything we do, like this is a linen shirt. This shirt, there's a frequency to fabric. I want to have, when you become sensitive and you start to feel things, when you see the polyester, the synthetic chemicals, that they impact the skin. There's so many things you start to recognize. The dish pods I'm using that's going over my dishes, that's in the Dawn soap and all these harshful things. It's actually then being on my plate, and then that plate heats up with the hot food on it, and it's going into me, and they're endocrine disruptors. What does the endocrine system do? It's sort of the body's pharmacy. It tells the body, oh, they need more of this, less of that, this, less of that. If you keep having things that are filled with artificial fragrances, harmful chemicals, Windex, all this stuff, and it's coming in through the nose, the eyes, the skin is your largest organ, it's interfering with the endocrine system. And so then the body doesn't know what to do when it comes into contact or it has a certain level of state, it doesn't know how to respond because it's disrupting the signal. Hormone issues, thyroid issues and such. We can have pseudoestrogens, which can come in also from these avenues. A way to help block those harmful estrogen, that's the worst thing a man wants to do is have his estrogen get out of hand with the testosterone. Everyone has progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Progesterone is the one that tells how much estrogen to have and how much testosterone to have. For a woman that's going through her changes and is having issues with her cycle, or for anybody that's having issues with her cycle, a remedy for that is to get wild yam cream and to put it on the body because it is a natural way to boost progesterone and it'll start to regulate that. That could go for anybody with an issue though, where one is worse than the other. My brother at one point had an issue. He saw there was an issue because he started crying at rom-coms. It's a problem. You know, not to not be sensitive, but it's a problem if you're just like crying and weeping and such, you know? And you know, and for everybody, you know, there's a good type of crying, and then there's like, you know, it's too much. But you start to see that, you know what, the body will primarily heal itself if you just sort of get out of the way and start doing the things that there's already natural leverage to. So eating highly nutritious foods with high vibrational signals. I say this word vibration because actually everything is in motion. You're sitting here, but actually your cells have an atom with electrons in motion all around it. There's a vibration, there's a sound to you. And most of your body is empty space, even though you feel like it's not. It is, because most of the atom is empty space, which means most of your body is actually empty space. And the thing that has the greatest effect on the body is the signal coming from the heart. That is what can affect things across empty space, is a signal, magnetism coming from the heart. And a heart that is in peace, and then the mind is in peace with the heart, and you have this heart-brain coherence, the body will just repair itself along the way in it. And then if you have a certain problem, you go, oh, okay, I need help. You say, God, help me. And then what does he do? He brings you here, right? And then it brings us all together. I've met to have such wonderful relationships by having issues. It brought me together with people. The first person I saw when I came to the state was my dentist, who loves the Lord, and we talk and go back and forth, blah, blah. And if I didn't have that issue with my tooth, I wouldn't have met him. You will have the Job experience in your life over and over and over again until you come to peace with the part in which you're not living with God. What was Job missing, even though he had the wife and the kids and the wealth and the land and the health? What was he missing? He was missing something. You know he was missing something because when he lost it all and got it all back, he got back more. So that means he was missing something. He was missing knowing God in the separation. He was missing a certain aspect of God. He didn't realize that God was with him even when everything was taken away. Some of the best scriptural verses in the entire Bible about God and who he is in the book of Job, where he's this vast presence. Who made Leviathan? And we fear Leviathan, but God, shouldn't you fear God who made Leviathan? And we have this understanding of God is so much bigger than all of it. And Job was saying, what did I do? What did I do? I need to, ask for forgiveness, all this stuff. He was trying to do everything. He did not understand that God was with him in every single motion. He had to let go of the mind and totally just not even care and just profess who God was. And once he did that, he got everything back. That's the same thing here that's going to happen. You're going to have confusion after confusion, and things are going to get harder and harder until you come to a place where you talk to God in peace, so that when that thing comes, you'll know you've changed when your response to it is different. And then you will not need to go through it anymore. In a certain sense, every single day we're tested all the time. Not really that, it's actually more than staying in a test, we're given an opportunity to not be the cycle of Job over and over and over again.
When we do the fruit and vegetable fast, will that take care of inflammation in the body?
Oh, how tremendously.
Okay.
Inflammation is you need the good type of sodium, which is going to come from the celery. That's a good type of sodium. The inflammation that you're getting is from the highly processed foods that hurt the liver and do not feed the gut. And so the body, it becomes dehydrated. The body is dehydrated. Water is having to be put out because you don't have enough fiber and insoluble fiber in the colon to have you have a bowel movement. If you're not having a bowel movement several times a day, every day, that's a sign that something is not right.
I'm great at that.
Yeah.
When I eat.
No, that's good.
No,
That's good. But for
I'm not-
some,
not
if
sleeping
they're
at night.
chronically dehydrated, then what happens is it'll take the hydration from other places, and then the body will retain water. So this is the effect of where you have inflammation. If you're not sleeping,
Right.
that's not necessarily due to inflammation.
And I have tinnitus too.
Okay, so that's nerves. Those are nerve related. The nerves are, okay, so then you could have virus inflaming nerves. There's different microorganisms that can be inflaming things on the inside.
We'll talk, I'll
Yeah.
make an appointment with you. The other thing is this, I'm sorry.
But the sun, do not forget the
No,
sun.
we're gonna
I
do
know.
that. Oh, you said Clorox is not good, we know Lysol's not good.
No.
I have 2 dogs.
Yeah, I thought you would.
I wanna take care of the parasites when they come in, I like to mop.
Vinegar,
But does vinegar, commercial vinegar?
for 6% acidity. 6% acidity is not the same as 5%. I don't know specifically if we're talking about parasites, because I never looked up that, so I can't tell you that right off my mind. Vinegar is one of the strongest cleaners.
I use that too.
Also is force of nature. Force of nature is known to get rid of 99.99% of microbes. And force of nature, it works and lasts for about a week. You get the little packets and it makes it, it turns it into this very clean, strong cleaning agent that is very,
What
it's
is
healthy.
Nature?
Force of nature.
Where do I get that?
Order it.
And you said 6%?
6% acidity vinegar.
Just cleaning.
So if you clean a toilet bowl, oh, don't do this.
What?
Don't put vinegar in a toilet bowl and then put baking soda in it.
My son does that all the time.
All you did was turn it into glorified water. Because one is an acid and one is a base. One's alkaline and one's an acid. When they come together, it's neutral.
Right.
All the big cleaning effect happened when they just bubbled. That was it. But it didn't clean anything. It now rendered it useless. If you're going to use vinegar, use vinegar. If you're going to use baking soda, use baking soda. Not at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, I just wanted to say 2 things, because our water here is so horrible. And everything, you need to wash everything in clean water, and you need to drink clean water. And if you don't do that, you're just getting so many pollutants. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
And,
We have a whole house
I
filtration
have
system
an
we should do.
osmosis, reverse osmosis system, but you gotta do something like that, because that's really the number 1 thing, and that's a real killer, because they dump so much stuff in the Savannah River. I have all the
Yes.
research on that. Anyway, the other thing is that because I had a son that, carbs are killers. Almost everybody in the United States eventually will get their islets of the pancreas will be just gone, just shot, and that's what happens, and that's why so many people are dialyzed, and just everything, and have to have insulin and so forth. But I have a rule that for every meal, I don't have more than 25 carbs. That's not, sugar, potatoes, rice, whatever, but no more than 25 carbs at every meal. So I was just gonna add those things.
There was a time where
25 grams.
there was a time that I ate in a keto way, to the point where I'd can a stick and see if I was in
I don't do
ketosis.
that.
But
I
I
have some carbs.
now, and I was keeping it lower than 10 grams of carbs. So I was subtracting the dietary fiber. Dietary fiber subtracts the carbs. So whatever your carb amount is, you subtract it from the dietary fiber. But I've been released from that. So I'm just gonna, this is the other thing, is what works for some does not necessarily mean it's gonna work for everybody. Everyone has a different balance. And you'll see this even by seeing people live out their lives, and they, really long. And from what I can see, what attracts me at this moment is the blue zones. So the blue zones are pockets of people in the world that have the highest amount of people living into the hundreds. And there is a documentary on, maybe it's Netflix or Prime, I can't remember. And I think it's called, Blue Zones, I think is in the name. It might say Journey to something. Oh, remember? I don't remember. But in Greece? Greece is, there's only one place in Greece. Do you remember which place in Greece? There was Okinawa in Japan. There was, in Italy, it was, it's not the country, it's just one city in it. And there's one city, Pasadena, there's one city in Italy, one city in Greece, one in Japan. Japan lost it, it's no longer a blue zone because fast food came in. And there's one in Costa Rica, and there's one in the United States, and it's in Palo Alto, California. And it comes from the people that Barbara O'Neill is kind of part of. Because Barbara O'Neill is a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist, but she is. Believes in the Lord, and they just believe, they have different variations
She's
of
still
belief.
alive, right?
Yeah, she's alive.
Where is she living?
I think she was kicked out of her country.
Australia.
Yeah, Australia. She was kicked out. Well, she wasn't kicked out. She was told that she can't practice what she was doing. So obviously she had to go. But because she was kicked out, this is how God uses all things and works for good. Because she was kicked out, she went online. That's why we know about her. Because she was kicked out. People were going to her healing retreats, getting healed. And they didn't want that to happen. So they kicked her out, and so now I think she's here in the United States. So, but anyway, what they all had in common was they ate 90%, I think it was 95% plant-based. That's what they all had in common. They all had spiritual connection in common. They all believed in a God. They all had a community. They didn't send people to nursing homes. They all took care of each other, and they all were physically active. And they were all altruistic, they were all charitable, they would give away. They were different cultures, but they all had those 5 things in common. I find that to be very inspiring, that particular documentary. So I'll say this is the golden rule that is kind of followed in that, is to eat 80-20, which is actually an economic principle. And it's nice when you see an economic principle applied to different areas. This is the principle, it's 80% for us would be to eat 70 to 80% alkalizing foods, 20% acidifying foods. You choose what that's going to look like. And this is the premise, that the blood of the body is alkaline, 7.3 or 7.4 in between that. It has to stay that way, otherwise you'll die. But the cells of the body can fluctuate. They are supposed to be 6.5, which is slightly acidic, which matches the roots, the soil should be about 6.4. If it's too alkaline, there will be no movement. If it's too acidic, the roots will burn. And so in the body, if you eat in that type of a balance, it's supporting those numbers and keeping it in a state of movement and health. And so choosing alkalizing foods, lemon is alkalizing. Any of the vegetables, green, the lettuces, the spinach, all of the vegetables are alkalizing. Almonds are alkalizing. Lentils are alkalizing. Acidifying foods would be the meats, cashews, the grains. So even though those are healthy foods, they are acidifying. But so if you keep it in that balance, it really helps the body. Now, if you believe, though, something different, you're bound by your belief, in a certain sense. You get what I'm saying? So if we believe something different, we're bound by that belief. So there was a time in my life that I believed I was allergic to gluten, but I'm not. Because I said, no, I'm done with that belief. So it's sort of, you kind of will, your beliefs are a big dictator in how this all plays out. That's why I say it's going to be different for everybody, because everyone has different beliefs. But generally speaking, you can see the life in food. You can see when the food has life in it.
Can you put, is a lot of this on your website?
No, I'm gonna put as much as I think that we talked about on there. And then what you should do is, I'll send a blast text out to everybody. Maybe if you want, this is what to do. Just write down my number, 631-747-7123. Please text me your email address. Or 631-747-7123. Text me your email address, and actually, Charles, give me that box. There's like a box of cards. Yeah, that.
What's your website?
It's changetoheal.com. I'm going to give you the cards. Just take the cards. Just, you could just pass it around. You know, just pass it around. Take what you don't need. Doesn't matter.
Are the list of farms on your website?
I'm going to put it all.
Okay.
So if you send me your email address, I'll send out a blast email when it's all up. You can always call me, and you can set up an appointment. This is what I do. I sit and I talk about it. In terms of what I charge, I do it by donation. So that's for whatever on someone's heart of what they want to give. That's the way I set it up.
One of the farms that's in Bluffton on Thursdays.
Oh, yes.
Go on Thursday, Philly West Farm.
Philly West Farm is at the Bluffton Market. I wonder if they come here to the Hilton Head Island Market. I'm not sure.
So just Bluffton and Fort Worth.
Just Bluffton.
Where
Okay.
is this from? When is it? Built?
Thursday, Bluffton Farmers Market on Thursday.
Where is that?
It's an old town.
Okay, and who is it? And what's the?
Philly West is a farmer. They have a bunch of meats. They're a regenerative farmer.
We have chicken,
If you get a freezer, you can buy this, and then you just have it in bulk, you know? But that's really the big thing. Literally, if you stopped eating meats that came from places you didn't know, you'd already see a difference and you won't die.
No more Costco? No more Costco?
Unfortunately, and if you put more money in the food, know that you're putting more money with the farmer. That money is now going, because these farmers that are growing the food in the right way, they need our support. Otherwise, if they tire out, who's going to take on farming? Imagine if these farms didn't exist and we didn't even have an option. This is something to embrace and start putting money towards. And in a certain sense, the more money you put into your farmer, the less money you put into the doctor. You just won't get sick if you invest in your health. Someone says to eat like you have cancer every day. I think that's a very negative way to think about it, but there's truth to it. Yes.
That you was on screen. David Potluck. But you mentioned some like specific restaurants. Can I text you for those later, or you
Yes.
have them as
And I love my veggie baked. Actually, how do you like my veggie baked? I make cheese out of cashews. And I make ground meat out of mushrooms and cauliflower and carrot. I ground it all up in a food processor and I make beef balls.
Brilliant.
And the cashew cheese is so easy because you just use cashews and lemon, salt, and tapioca starch, and you blend it and put it on the stove and it becomes cheese. Well, anyway,
I'm gonna have to.
text me if you
Yes,
have
me,
okay?
thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you so much for, this was a long amount of time to sit, but thank you